work. Multi-streaming.
YouTube OBS gods will work. Will shine in our
Yes.
favor.
Excellent connection, it says. I think we're doing it. I think we are about to multi-stream. Here we go. Welcome, everybody, to another amazing episode of the BTR stream, Free for All Friday multi-stream. So this is the first time where we are going to have an effective multi-stream session. So for those who don't know, we have an account on Facebook. We have an account on DLive. And what we're doing right now is we are multi-streaming to all these platforms, so you can go into the bottom description where you can see the links to our channels and go there as well and support us, and the messages are going to be cross-posted through our Discord channel. So yes, I am looking at DLive. Wonderful quality. I am seeing it right there. So whoever wants to go into DLive, subscribe to us to DLive because we want to expand the hell out of this operation. So anyway, we have wonderful guests for you today. We have the modern hermeticist to my right. We've got Vinny to my bottom left, and the amazing Gio Penichetti, as always, bringing you the fire, as you were bringing us the fire yesterday with the philosophical. Can you actually talk about that for those who weren't aware of what was going on yesterday, Gio?
Oh, with Jeremiah?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. We got into a little bit about just oh God, I forget now. Just I don't know. Because I used to be ANCAP when I was in high school, and so I kind of I don't know. I had a disagreement with some underlying assumptions, but other than that, yeah. And Zero HP Lovecraft was and also Modern Hermeticist was stream sniping in the chat, so it was pretty epic, pretty good. So.
How would you break it down? What was the big argument that you guys were having? What would you narrow it down to if you can't concisely say it?
I guess just the conception of power within postmodernity. I think that's like one of the probably biggest disagreement. I accused him of only looking at one source of power above all else. But I don't know, maybe I could be wrong, but I tend to disagree fundamentally with any sort of anarchic assumptions about the nature of social relations and power. I don't know. And I say this being, because Michel Foucault pretty much was an individualist anarchist, but I think that, to start from the position, to me, just lends itself to a lot of like Enlightenment baggage when it comes to political philosophy. I think that a lot of this stuff is untenable the way things are now. I mean, if you wanted to look at like a possibility of like a society built on patchwork or something like that, I mean, yeah, we could argue about that. But I don't know. I just, yeah, I don't know. I think libertarians, I think their heart is in the right place, but I just, well, yeah, that'll say no more.
Well, how about yourself, Modern Hermeticist, and how about yourself, Vinny? What do you guys make? And I don't want to do a whole libertarian episode again. I actually want to focus on the interesting things.
Well, I thought we were talking about cryptids and UFOs.
Yes, we're going to get to the cryptids and the A's and all that. But just real quick, what is your take on this whole libertarianism discussion? Modern Hermeticist, you go first.
Well, I am a libertarian, so that is my point of view. I don't think I would consider myself an anarchist necessarily, because I do recognize, forms of authority as naturally emergent properties and people organizing themselves into hierarchies that are legitimate and so forth. So I'm not like a hardline anarchist, but I'm definitely a libertarian. But I didn't, I entered that debate rather late yesterday, kind of jumped halfway through, so I missed some of the points that were made, so I can't really touch on that.
Well, we had a whole thing with the Libertarian Party versus the libertarians that are dissatisfied, saying that they're preaching too much to the social justice warrior crowd. And I guess I kind of noticed that too, where they try to show like, we are so civil, we are so nice, we are so inclusive. But it almost seems today like the more you give, the more people are going to take. Like, people will perceive you as weak, and they would start to take advantage of you when you do try to show good faith, as unfortunate as that may be. I don't know, like, do you notice the same thing, or am I kind of like in a bubble when it comes to this because I live in New York and I just see the worst of the worst when it comes to this kind of wokeness?
It's hard to say because I don't really hang out with a lot of libertarians. I live in Canada and there's just not that many around. I think there's like a libertarian party. Sometimes I see the sign, but I'm not political, so I don't really get involved in these.
Well, you're just a nice person, and I think a lot of Canadians are nice people, but it ultimately it ultimately, and I know that this is a fake quote from Justin Trudeau, but I still like it. If you kill your enemies, they win.
Yes, that's right. But I think, to me, libertarianism is rooted in the non-aggression principle and the self-defense principle and the marriage of those two things. And I think that's really the like cornerstone and essence of libertarianism. And for me, that is an admirable thing, a desirable thing, a thing that is conducive to the good. And so I support that when it's not, killing people or in order to achieve some sort of utopia.
No, I definitely agree there. I think the problem that people would point out, though, when that is taken too far, is that people wouldn't have the impetus to make sure that people don't aggress against them by, I guess, preemptively figuring certain things out that are going on and making sure that, we had recently on some people who were talking about how when they have a gun and they are going to aim it at somebody who's going to rob them, they're going to make sure that they're going to kill that person. Not because they're bloodthirsty, but because of their family.
Come to my house, Frank. I'm going to end you. Sorry.
Exactly.
You mean like Boogie, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Boogie, he's the ultimate example of what a true libertarian
Come on,
should be like.
I dare you, Frank. I dare you.
We need mercy in the mix. We need some mercy in there.
But see, that's the whole idea, right? Like, people
There's no such thing as mercy.
People are concerned that today, if we look at actually those two columns, like Modern Hermeticist, you're familiar with this, the two columns of Bose, and what's the other one called? Joachim, yeah. So the two columns, Joachim and Bose, that's supposed to be like the column of severity and mercy, and how there should be a balance between the two. It seems like today a lot of people, including I think a lot of conservatives, I think that they may be, at least for now, a little bit too merciful, where just so that they wouldn't want to be perceived as politically incorrect or racist or anything like that, they would try to, make peace with people, the loud minority of whom don't want any peace, and would, at the moment's notice, start flinging their urine on them. And, like, how can you make any headway with somebody who is already in that state of mind? Like, you're going to have to kind of preemptively know, we're not going to be able to, like there was this girl who was on the show who was a tanky, and she... I believe it was pretty much because of her.
You're so spurned by her.
Yes.
Oh my God.
No, because this is personal. Because of that fucking bitch. And I will say, because of that fucking bitch, a friend of hers, called up my family, and they threatened them. They basically asked them if they're feeling safe. I have never had this experience in my entire life when dealing with people from the far right.
The best was when you were telling her about how your family had to flee from Russia, and she was like, "I'm so sorry that your family was, bourgeois pieces of shit." I'm like, "Oh my God, this is like next level LARPing," and yeah. So there you go.
Well, let's bring things to Vinny. Oh, and by the way, I put in the wrong social media handle on Modern Hermeticist. My apologies. It goes on Vinny. Vinny, you are at the Gruel Society. Here we go.
Yes, I am.
Can you talk a little bit about the Gruel Society? Well, first, let me ask you about libertarianism, and then talk about the Gruel Society. What are your thoughts on libertarianism, since we're on the subject?
So I had a really great point I wanted to bring up regarding Geo when he said that he was an ANCAP in high school. It's quite a coincidence. My friend Jason, who co-founded Dulce Base Files with me, also co-founded the Anarcho-Capitalist Club of my high school with me. That we did in senior year, because we didn't give a shit at that point. We just wanted to fuck with our school. So we started the ANCAP Club. I'm not a libertarian anymore by any regards. You can see the hat. It's one of the main takeaways that have made me reject libertarianism is just seeing anarcho-communist signs that say "We will tread," and it's like the entire ideology of libertarian is leave me the fuck alone, and you're rejecting that. And so it's if not everyone's going to play the game doesn't work. That's my personal take on it. I still have respect for libertarians. I get it. I wish I was a libertarian, but it's not the way the world goes.
Modern hermeticist, would you want to add anything to that before we go on to the Gruel Society?
Well, I don't know. I think that I think we should give we skipped their introductions, Lev, since they've been
Yes, that is true.
time they're
So,
coming on. So we'll yeah.
modern hermeticist, starting with you, can you talk a little bit about yourself, where you come from to be in this education of hermeticism?
Right. So I basically am an historian and a translator of medieval and I suppose Renaissance works. But I studied classics. I've got a degree in that, and I'm currently in my PhD program, and I'm studying Renaissance studies. So I am really into the study of Kabbalah and angelology and Hermeticism and how these historical currents sort of cross-pollinate with one another. And so I suppose, in on aliens and the A's and so forth is I'm into, planetary intelligences and extra dimensional beings that populate DMT space. Like these are the kinds of A's that interest me.
The machine elves.
Yeah, sort of. Like the machine elves is like one way to look at it, but like I feel like there's a rich tradition of other people already saying like, oh, these are angels and demons, and there's a whole host of spirits populating these sort of interworlds, and they are hierarchized according to different tasks and duties and stuff like that. And monks have explored these topics and written about them, as have magicians of various types, and it's interesting to see historically how all of these ideas converge with one another. And that's sort of my in on all of this stuff. I also I love just watching David Icke and that sort of stuff, immersing myself in reptilians and greys and all that kind of lore. So I'm definitely interested in that sort of thing, but from a more formal level, I guess I'm just interested in what people in the past historically have said about these kinds of topics.
And did you take trips yourself through DMT to go into these worlds, and which entities did you end up meeting there?
Yes. I don't know if I could say what entities I met there, because that's like trying to put a name on something that is sort of unfathomable.
Well, could you describe them in any way, like certain features that stood out to you?
Like jeweled, crystalline, spinning, reflecting light, but they're like these very complex mathematical, I don't know, spinning flowers. They look like flowers talking to you in visual language. These are tropes now because Terence McKenna was so apt to label these phenomena. I don't know about machine elves necessarily, but in terms of angelic beings or demonic beings of various types, like mantis creatures, these are kinds of things. What was weird is that like what DMT sort of does is it shows you a scaffolding of reality that is like over top of your reality. So there's a lot of simultaneous realities occurring at once. So you can have the person right next to you is this sort of mantid thing. And you're like, how are you simultaneously human in this one plane of existence, but in this higher degree, you're a mantis. And then above and beyond that, you are into some, I don't know, disembodied intellects. And that's kind of what DMT sort of that did to me was showed me many vistas and many windows of like simultaneous existences across various planes. And those spaces are populated with intelligences. I call them intelligences because that's more fluid, I think, than beings.
Well, you were alluding to something beyond that DMT realm, which I don't know if calling it the astral realm is necessarily the right word for it, but the causal realm, when you're talking about like the realm of pure ideas, that would be an area that would be beyond that realm that would manifest to you as these bejeweled flower beings that you were talking about just now. Would that be correct to say that you are able to glimpse at the realm beyond that as well?
I would say there are, degrees of rarefaction out from the one, and things emanate out from the one. And the closer you get to the one, the more simple things become. Like geometrically, they collapse into more simple and simple forms. But as you expand outward, there are lots and lots and lots of permutations of forms. And these are where these kind of entities, they populate that noosphere or that imaginarium, if you will. So
that is incredible.
I don't know if I would separate them. I would say that they are degrees of rarefaction apart, and then matter is sort of like our world here is this like lowest extension of that.
That's always been interesting for me, though, because when you say lowest, it's hard for me to imagine something lower than the solid matter we're in right now. But would there be anything that's even more material than the material existence that we're in?
Well, when I say lowest, I mean like the quantum reality at the ground of being, whatever that may be. I'm not a quantum physicist, so I won't speculate on that, but quarks and gluons and bosons and things that, various forces, that's sort of the ground of being. And I think that is us perceiving that or interacting with that feedback loop that arises out of that. That's one of the lower emanations out from the one.
So like a singularity, you could say, like, for example, the way, that was Hart and Nagiri, they talk about the singularity of, instead of the self, like as the conglomeration of forces collapsing into a simpler force, and there's sort of like a mutual origination going on. But it's funny you mentioned that, because the thing that pops to mind, two things would be, one being the famous, what was it? Was it a woodblock or lithograph of the firmament? I forget.
The Flammarion engraving?
Yeah, the engraving. Yeah. I believe that was, was that I believe that was like intaglio etching, but that comes to mind, and the second being is the popularity recently of, I guess normies are discovering how angels are depicted in the Bible, so now they have a meme about it. They have what is it called? Be Not Afraid. It seems that a lot of, and this isn't my point. This is that one guy on YouTube. What's his name? Meme Analysis talks about how a lot of these things are coming up into light through meme culture. And to me, I think it's almost like a postmodern sort of aesthetic appropriation of these very ancient truths. And even like Frederick Jameson talked about this, about how the sort of the forces of anti-modernity will eventually creep up within postmodernity. And I think, and your research in particular, you talk about this with the birth of sort of a perennial philosophy, right? We were talking about this once, Thicko and people like that. So I think, and like, for example, that one right there is very good. Lev, is that the Sonic?
No, it's SpongeBob.
SpongeBob, sorry.
So in the Kaliak server,
Sonic,
somebody posted this picture of SpongeBob SquarePants, and I immediately recognized the angel inside.
Wow.
And this tweet, it
wheels
got,
within wheels.
look how many retweets this thing got.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So people are, I think this talks to Gen Z, even though some of them may be confused about what life has to offer them. I think there is still this longing for something deeper, so they do gravitate towards that.
So now let's move on to Gruel Society. I love that
Yes.
name, by the way. Gruel
Thank you.
Society.
What does it mean, gruel?
Reminds me of that clip from The Simpsons where what was the smart kid where he got freed from the fat camp in Krusty Land? He's like, precious gruel.
So the name originates from back before my original band in like I think it was 2019. I forget what my old @ was, but I was dating this extremely liberal chick, and she wanted to start. She knew about my Twitter, and I was like, oh fuck. So I made an alt account and I named it Thulian Farts. Which is, I don't know. That's the first thing it came up with. And my main account got banned. I dumped her because she was fucking insane. And then I was like, all right, I'll just use this alt account as my main now. And I was like, Thulian Farts is fucking retarded. I'm not using that. So I slowly adjusted it. And I basically took Thule Society because it sounds cool. And then I just changed Thule to
the Thule. Oh wow, that's
that's literally it. I don't think I've ever actually told that story before. Yeah, that's the origin of my name, but I don't have any complex history behind my account like you guys. I just post physique pictures and post autistic stuff. That's about it.
I got a squat rack behind me.
And how did you get interested in the cryptids and in the Dulce Base?
Well, I mean, I've always been interested in paranormal stuff since I was a kid, mainly on a surface level until I was older. But the main things were a cryptid experience 2 or 3 years ago on a backpacking trip, which kind of opened my eyes to there's some weird shit out there. And with the whole Dulce Base files research project, I didn't realize it was going to turn out to what it is now. It started off. I have the full thread. I'll probably post it in one of the chats if people want to check it out. But my friend Jason, who's my co-founder, just sent me a text one day and he's like, "Hey, have you ever looked at these weird reviews on Anza-Borrego State Park?" And I was like, "No, I haven't." And then I started tweeting about it because it's kind of interesting. And then people started interacting with it. And I was like, there's something weird going on here. And it turned into this whole rabbit hole. And this was back in April. And I was going crazy because of quarantine. And so I just spent 10 hours a day researching this schizophrenic conspiracy theory. And then it started culminating. And then it just kind of hit a roadblock. And I literally forgot about it for 4 months until people kept DMing me about, hey, what about those tunnels? What about the tunnels, dude? Did you ever figure it out? And so I was talking to Jason. I was like, dude, we can do something here. There's a lot of interest. We can do something more substantial than just posting threads on Twitter. And so here we are buying hundreds of dollars of computer camera equipment from the fucking 90s and early 2000s. And now I'm here.
Excellent. And for the first time, by the way, somebody subscribed from D-Life, but I have to turn that fucking quack off because that's going to be annoying as hell for the people who are going to be watching this again. But that is amazing that you don't just post these things on Twitter like a lot of people do, but when you want to put your money where your mouth is, go to that place. And like, how much risk is involved there? Like, would there be, because when it comes to just exploring like tunnels and caves, I can imagine that there's a lot of room for error if you're not careful. Can you talk a little bit about like that preparatory process?
Yeah, so the main point of this project is I'm not trying to go into it assuming something. I'm not trying to assume that these tunnels are real going into it. I'm trying to take a very scientific approach of this is what I have so far, this is what I know, this is what I don't know. I'm trying to uncover the truth of it. So we're actually planning on filming the first episode next weekend. If we go out to the desert, spend 6 or 7 hours exploring and find absolutely nothing, we're still going to post it. It's going to be a boring video, but we're still going to post it saying, yeah, we didn't find anything. We're still going to keep looking though. So the whole point is not to try and convince you that something's real. It's trying to expose the truth behind it. So at the very least, we just waste a day's time driving around the desert. At the very most, we uncover a massive global conspiracy regarding alien life. So I may never be heard from again, or I might just be posting into the void. I don't know.
Who gets the Patreon money if you're not heard from again? Have you written the will up?
I have not. I have not even thought about a will.
Well,
That's great though. You're using like OG 90s equipment. That's amazing. I love that like grainy art tour, like art house film stuff. That's amazing right there.
So that was all Jason's idea. He is probably one of the smartest dudes I know when it comes to cameras and camera equipment. He has been using film cameras since he was 7, and I'd say he's probably put at least $10,000 in all of his equipment in total over the years. He has some very impressive stuff. So he understands very niche categories that I do not know about. I've always been interested in filmmaking, but I've always been interested in screenwriting and directing and producing. He's always been the camera aspect and the director of photography and stuff. So it's basically, we have this very, very good pairing where he knows all the really important technical stuff and he's able to make really important aesthetic decisions. Whereas I've always been better at organizing everything, getting stuff together, making sure things are working, and with my Twitter outreach. And so, yeah, he was like sending me all these links for like $1,000 cameras that are like 30 years old. And I was just like, dude, I don't know what you're talking about. If it looks cool, buy it. And so we bought like a Sony QVC something or other. It's an old newscasting film camera.
Oh shit, that was like $100,000 in '99. Wow.
Yeah, and it still uses Betacam. We had to buy a hold on, I still don't know what it's called. We've been texting about it all day though. It's a VTR machine for offloading video, and it's literally an old school video editing machine for Betacam. So we're just buying a bunch of old vintage shit.
Wow.
Amazing. There's a movie like that where they went out to the desert and they had an alien encounter, but like it kept switching in this time warp that the alien created between like 1992 and like the present day. So that reminds me. I forget the name of it, but yeah, maybe Lev's research skills can kick.
I will take a look. And we also have some comments that for the first time ever we are seeing on the Discord screen. So one of our biggest things have been, how do we merge all the chat comments together into one thing so they'll never be lost? And here it is in the BTR chat. For those who want to go into the BTR chat separately, just go to the bottom of the YouTube video in the description to Discord, and that link should take you there. Anyway,
we have your messages read. Please donate.
Yes. Go to streamlabs.com/LoveJules, and also for the very first time, we have a new Bitcoin/Ethereum donation station, which is Cointree, cointr.ee/breaktherules. And here is an example of what it looks like. So this is a $5 to break the rules Ethereum. It just has the lorem ipsum text, but that is just an example of what it's going to look like, and I'm going to be checking those as well. So anybody who's got some crypto, it is a very easy way to donate crypto, and we will definitely read anything that you write there. Anyway, the comment that we have...
Go and support Gruel Society. Go and support Modern Hermeticist on YouTube. He's got a whole library of excellent YouTube videos. If you just want to space out and watch something, listen to something intelligent while you're playing video games or something. I don't know what the kids do nowadays. And buy my work, of course. Buy my paintings, please, for the love of God. So,
and if you go to patreon.com, patreon.com/breaktherules with the $20 patrons. This deal is going fast. It's not going to be around in its current state for much longer. $20 patrons are going to get an exquisite print from the great Gio Penichetti. So
for limited time till the end of October.
Yes,
November,
and here we have the Dulce Base files, the Patreon link. So for those who want to support Vinny, this is where you got to go. And I've seen that beautiful patch, which is the cover of our Free for All Friday. Can you talk about that? Like, who gets the patch?
Okay, so with the patches, I have no graphic design experience whatsoever. I'm pretty much a boomer when it comes to anything beyond video games on computers. I have no formal experience in Photoshop, Premiere Pro, or anything. I make it work, but it's not great. Um, Jacob Kulvion, I think I'm pronouncing his last name right. He's a personal funder of the project. Actually, he's been a great help for me and Jason. And I was talking about making patches just as a passing idea, and he said, "Hey, I've got a patch guy. Here's his email." So I emailed him, and it ended up being some really fucking sick dude from Pakistan who, from starting to email each other to the patches being shipped to my door, was about a 1 week process. It was
Wow,
absolutely insane.
that's unheard of everywhere else. Yeah.
So we just made patches, and the whole point of the patches is to go directly back in the project and fund us to go further, buy better gear, and explore more weird shit throughout the Southwest and Pacific Northwest.
The quality is amazing. I'm just looking at one of the patches right now. I'm going to put it on the screen in a
Put
bit.
it on the screen,
But there is a sword that's going through the United States of America. There's a little UFO on the corner. Oh, wow, look at that. So who gets these patches? How much money do people need to donate to get the patches?
So these are actually on our website. We opened up a Shopify and linked it to our website, dbfiles.net. And so it's just $10, free shipping. And the whole
Whoa.
point of it is, well, it's for domestic. If you're out of the country, just DM me and we'll figure something out. But yeah, these are the patches. They're about 3.5 inches by 3.5 inches. And yeah.
Excellent.
Nice.
Yeah, the truth is down there. And what are those interconnected lines on the map of the U.S.?
So that is from a website, the Blue Planet Project. It is a massive database of completely schizophrenic conspiracy theories, and that's where later on we were trying to find this map that had all those connecting lines. Someone sent it to me without context. They didn't know who the author was, and what it basically represents is the underground bases throughout the United States, the DUMBs, as they're called, deep underground military bases.
Oh,
And I simplified it a lot for the patch, but I'll actually send you the original file so you can put it up on the live stream. But it has tunnel entrances, where the tunnels are, UFO sightings, cattle mutilations, basically everything regarding UFOs.
And there is a particular line, I think, in the lower part of the U.S. that all the cattle mutilations can be traced to.
Yes.
It's the 30-something parallel. Is it 35th parallel? I don't remember. I'm going to have to take a look at that.
That reminds me of something, actually. That reminds me of, for some reason, a lot of these tunnelings and a lot of these deep bases, when you go underground, it's inherently, there's some sort of sense of terror to it. I remember when I was a kid, besides my old man listening to Coast to Coast every night in the summer, I would stay up. But when I was a kid, one of the things that got me interested in a lot of what I'm interested now was I watched the documentary with Eric von Däniken. What was it called? Revisiting the Chariot of the Gods. And he talked about Göbekli Tepe and other places where he says, there was giant underground cities there, and they had storage and everything. He's like, what were they hiding from? And when I was a kid, I was like, holy fuck, they were like, hiding from some aliens or something, right? But of course, it makes strategic sense to have these huge underground cities. But to me, there's a common theme there between the UFO abduction phenomenon, a lot of these ancient sites, a lot of these serpent mounds, and a lot of missing 411 incidents being near caves, especially granite caves. And of course, granite is also another substance found throughout a lot of North American indigenous holy sites and so forth. And so I think all of these things are connected. But when I was a kid, my mind was like, oh my God, they had to go to the caves to go against, to hide from the aliens. So, but yeah, maybe that could be a little icebreaker for what we're, the conversation. So.
Well, according to Robert Schoch, his theory is that there was a gigantic thunderstorm with so much lightning coming down like rain that was going on at the time. Now, I don't think it's a coincidence that his name is Robert Schoch and he's talking about lightning storms. I think that was very fateful. But he is a geologist who was the guy that was responsible for talking about the weathering of the Sphinx, along with Graham Hancock, dating it to about 14,000 years old, which is, very unorthodox as far as the dating of the Sphinx goes. So everybody was against the guy, and I don't think he still took that back. Like, I think he still holds on to that idea, and it's a very interesting one. But I don't know, like, as far as icebreakers go, we can go on that a little bit later, but I am very curious about what you guys think of the ancient civilizations, of the dating of the Sphinx, of what exactly was going on back then, and how it relates to what's going on today with the discoveries that are made, like Göbekli Tepe. And I also want to ask everybody to subscribe right now as well while we're in this dead air. Okay, so while you guys are thinking about that, I'm going to read some of the comments. So we do have a comment that I wanted to get to in the very beginning from Putuna, who joined us last time, and here she is again. Yes, so Putuna was asking, let me go over here. Okay, as someone who doesn't believe in aliens, how do you guys explain the fact that we see no evidence of them in space? Things like Dyson spheres, megastructures, etc. So who wants to take this one?
They're hiding it from us. The globalists are hiding it from us. So I don't know. I mean, there is evidence probably, but yeah, go ahead.
I don't think we've even talked about space aliens thus far up to this point.
Well, thanks to Putuna, we are.
All right. Yeah, I don't know. I think that a lot of space aliens are government weapons programs. Like what people think are space aliens, or full-on psyops, like all this Academy of the Stars stuff and Tom DeLonge and all this stuff. Like that, that is a total psyop. That isn't to say that there, may not be a life out there, and that they've been here, or that people have had those experiences. But like when I think of abductions and things like that, I usually just assume those are like some sort of endogenous DMT dump that activates something that resembles machinery and probing and lights and grays and this sort of stuff. But I don't know, the world is this very strange place, and it's hard to say.
So, MH, you would agree with the Terence McKenna and, of course, the C.G. Jung thesis that that's Aeon, by the way, that's one of his best books. You would agree with their thesis then that a lot of endogenous DMT experiences UFO experiences happen from sort of collective unconscious content that is like being made sense of by modern man, like through machinery and
because people have been having these kinds of experiences for a really long time, and they were not manifest in the discourse of machinery and technology and so forth until very recently, that people were reading War of the Worlds and Star Trek and all of this stuff, and it was feeding back into people's conceptions of it. Again, I don't want to deny that there isn't a possibility of extraterrestrials, or that that humans have had contact with them even, but I think that from what it seems like is like a lot of those experiences resonate with me as kind of bad DMT trips or some sort of psychotic break.
Well, there is a theory about the combination of things like fairies, elves, jinn, demons, and aliens as most recently. Even if we take a look at something like Lamb, which was a demon that was summoned by Aleister Crowley, and this was like back in the 1800s. And if you take a look at how similar Lamb looks, I'm going to put a picture of him, but how similar Lamb looks to the modern alien, except for these two round things over here, those end up becoming the gray alien eyes, while his eyes are these little slits. So I'm not really sure what's up with that. But either way, like this was
the first gray.
Yeah, he was the first.
And then in the 60s, you get a lot of grays.
There you go. Well, it's funny because that's another thing we were talking about how the the sort of the New Age movement, they always have its resonance. Like any sort of social movement has its resonance in other places, but the New Age movement really was almost like the expansion of like a lot of the 19th century like spiritualist movements and mystic societies. But MH, what do you think of Alice? Just now that it came up, what do you think of Aleister Crowley? Do you think he was legit? Was he like an MI5 psyop? I know that the myth of 20th century guys they don't believe so. I personally think, I don't know. I think that uh, it's funny when you talk about government manipulation, but what's your opinion on it? Because this is like your forte, because he like synthesized a lot of the European mystery schools. So yeah, what's your hot take on Aleister Crowley? It's so stupid now that I say it, but yeah.
So were you asking me, or were you asking?
MH, sorry, Martin Hermeticist, but
Oh, sorry, right.
See, I didn't
Yeah,
understand
yeah.
when Geo wrote MH either. Who is this MH you're talking about? But yes.
Right, I understand. So I mean, Crowley is a very complex character. It's really difficult to sum him up in few words, because he really blurred the lines between what like a charlatan, but also not really, because he brought so many people along the way with him. In my mind, I respect him as a theoretician of the will. I'm interested in some of the ideas that he produced in regards to like the philosophy of ᚱAᚏᚏ, especially as he related it to yoga. I think his 8 lectures on yoga are fantastic. But in terms of, do I subscribe to Crowleyanity or anything like that? Definitely not. But I think that ᚱAᚏᚏ is something that he tapped into, but it's something that was in existence for a long time since. And we can even talk about, St. Augustine's ᚱAᚏᚏ and his theory of the will. And right now I'm translating Marsilio Ficino, and he's relying really heavily on these Thomistic conceptions of the will. And then St. Thomas is getting into Averroes's conceptions of it. So you have this long philosophical train of people talking about the idea of the will. And to me, this is fascinating, especially in an era where we're not even certain if we have will or not. Is it an illusion? Is it real? It really is a cornerstone of Christian theology, and that's why it was such a hot issue of contention in the Renaissance and so forth, as to, do we have will? And that, this ties into the astral entities and celestial intelligences and stuff, because it was thought that they determine our reality. They constitute and shape our reality. The planets and the intelligences that live with the planets, they beam their energies, and those rays essentially shape the material world below. And so there were all sorts of conceptions of, okay, well, if I'm buffeted about by these astral rays, by these celestial souls and planets, then how do I have free will? And this got into all kinds of theories about how the will rises above the sphere of the celestial sphere, and it rises to the level of the super celestial realm. And so to me, Crowley sort of fits into, he's like a decadent tail end of all of these discussions, who wraps a lot of that stuff up in an era that was not interested in these things.
He's like the Shakti aspect of it almost.
Yeah, and you get also the connection with demons and with angels and with Solomonic magic and Enochian ideals, and sort of how all of these converge together. I think that it's fascinating, but again, you take it with a grain of salt, and you realize that he was also out for power, like everybody is to some extent. Without it, you die. So we're all trying to get some of our power together. And
even in Japanese professional wrestling, there's the fighting spirit, Tukan. So, God, I had to put that in there. But yeah, that's interesting because even just in terms of will as a moral force, I mean, it goes back to Plato with like the Protagoras, for instance. Although I disagree, I think that a lot of modern like ethicists disagree with like whether the intellectual will can like prevent you from doing. He was kind of wrong about that because people know that they're doing so. But that's a whole another fucking discussion. But what you said was brilliant. So
well, it reminds me of a
when it comes
comment.
to Crowley
Yeah.
and Lamb, I think that like I do honestly believe that the image of Lamb shaped the modern imagery of the gray significantly. I don't think that that's a coincidence. I think that that is actually like the discourse was shaped, or people see what they have already seen in a way, and I think that people saw in the grays or they saw in Lamb this image of the grays. Now I don't know, maybe they might be combing their subconscious for images that are anthropomorphic, and that's really all it is. It's this kind of stripped down anthropomorphism of just like this featureless, sexless being with a big head. So I don't know. When you get into weird stuff like in the ᚱAᚗᛏᚺ, which is a Jewish mystical practice called the measuring of the body, there was this idea that God had a body, a physical body that could be, well, I don't know if it was physical, but it could be measured in parasangs. And he had kind of small arms and legs and this ginormous head. So there's some precedent for these giant-headed figures with tiny little bodies in mysticism.
Well, just like in Japanese comics and anime, where you have the chibi, which is, a version of the anime character that's supposed to be cuter, so they have a giant head and a small body. Or if you look at Pokemon, or actually any kind of animation, the head is always emphasized rather than the body. So I wonder if there is like a connection there. Like I do always think of like anime girls as being sort of like dakinis, being like these astral, elfish, fairy-like creatures that invade our subconscious, and they get all these Japanese people to draw them. Like that's how they're able to get into our world through the process of anime, and why we have these VTubers today, like that shark girl who, I don't know if retard alert is about what I'm saying or not, or something is going on in the chat, but if that makes me a retard, then by God, I am a retard. Anyway, I really do think that Japanese creators like Xenogears, I don't know if you guys ever played Xenogears, but that is an example of a video game that I think took so much out of the astral realm as far as the costumes, the scenery. There was even a scene where the Emperor Cain, a lot of it was also based on biblical themes, the Kabbalah. All of these various mystical subjects were very much present in Xenogears. And you had this Emperor Cain, who was sitting in like a different realm. Like he had a throne, but his throne was sitting in a completely different realm. It was all psychedelic. It was kind of like a DMT realm. And he had all these paintings that were around him by the great masters of who knows like where those paintings come from, maybe like different planets. But I really love that idea of being able to take all this information from the ether, which I think, like the Japanese especially, because they work really hard and really precisely at capturing the human form, and they're very committed to their craft. So I think that there is something that awakens within them, some kind of tunnel to some other ideas that they're able to draw from and create these things. So coming back to like this not hierarchy, but this gradient of forms that we were talking about before, that you were mentioning, modern hermeticist, I would really love for people to start just like Crowley, being able to take something from there, but not like Crowley. Like, my concern is that there may be, like the conspiracy theory about the elites, that there may be some elites out there who, and I don't know how many, but some, that if they are aware that this kind of thing is possible, they would use it for selfish reasons, and they would do certain, I don't know if human sacrifice, I haven't seen evidence of it, but let's say like if it's still around, would that be something?
Look at this chat, Lev, by the way. Look at this chat.
Oh man, I don't even want to look yet.
Gay, get a job. Anime is revenge for Hiroshima.
I think Planned Parenthood
Oh,
is
God.
proof that there's human sacrifice. Myself.
Well, these are the D-Live people, by the way. See, this is what happens when we're simultaneously
Well, there you go.
streaming on
Hot
D-Live.
take: anime is revenge for Hiroshima. So there
Yes.
you go.
Thank you very much, Ostmater. Welcome, and hope you subscribe to this channel. We're going to be doing a lot more videos coming up.
The elite will use anime for their own nefarious purposes. Wow. So they will make anime real. They will make the Dakini anime real for their own nefarious purposes. You've heard it first on Break the Rules.
It's already becoming real. Oh man, see, we gotta get these people warmed up to us, because these are new people. They have no idea who the hell we are. So everybody in the chat, go into D-Live and bring these people over to our side. We are a welcoming group here at Break the Rules. Anyway, we have some new people here as well. So we have Haka says, how are you? Can you hear us?
I'm doing okay. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can. So you are very
Awesome.
much a part of this conversation as far as Nikola Tesla, the kind of visions that he had. Would you be able to connect some of that stuff to what we were talking about right now regarding this astral realm and these fairies, aliens, demons, things like that?
I will say that it is a very interesting subject. My personal interest has always been more in connecting the physical, mechanical, the equations and formulas, trying to understand what Tesla was doing, and not so much the person himself. It's a really interesting topic when you start talking about how memory works, how time works, that at a certain level, everything seems to blend together. I forget who was talking about how the gray alien meme sort of spawned the reality, which is always kind of, interesting. But in terms of my expertise, it's a lot more on the technical, practical side.
And you have a picture, yeah?
Oh, I was gonna ask, have you heard of the holographic universe theory? Nassim Haramehn's work, that type of sort of connecting it into the sacred geometry type of thing?
I am familiar with the electric universe theory and some of the various concepts. At a high enough level, it's good to step back and understand exactly where some of the stuff came from. Around the 16, 17, 1800s, electricity was finally starting to be understood. The Ben Franklin flying a kite with the key was a
Wait, by the way, I'm sorry to
undertaking,
interrupt you. If there is
Sorry.
any way your audio is constantly going in and out, I'm not sure if you can call back on a different device or not, because that is an issue.
Stand by.
Okay, sounds good. Okay.
I'll catch you back in a little bit. Sorry about that.
No problem. No problem at all. So Hotep Sophia, thank you so much again for coming on. It is lovely to see you. We don't have that torch today, that tiki torch, but that was a very nice memento
Well,
from last
I have
time.
a candle.
That's good
I have
too.
a candle, which will have to
Yes.
suffice.
It would have to suffice. No, I mean, like, we need some fire in our lives, like fire of the gods, Kundalini. I think this goes back to even that Stanley Kubrick film, Dr. Strangelove, where you had that general who was constantly talking about how they want to deprive us of our precious bodily fluids. And I'm sure people who were watching... Yeah, well, people who were watching Dr. Strangelove at the time, I'm sure they were making fun of this, crazy general for talking about this weird bodily fluids conspiracy. But now that I look back on it, like, there is something to that. Like, in terms of nofap, in terms of taking that whole energy of reproduction and being able to use it
retention?
for semen retention, being able to use it for other ends, not just sexual. So where do you guys stand on the whole nofap, semen retention, Kundalini powers thing, for whoever wants to go? Vinny, where do you stand on it?
I think nofap has been taken a little bit too extreme. Like, they're like, I mean, again, you can't verify how truthful they are, but like guys on Fit that are saying like they've gone like 3 years on nofap, and it's like, that's not healthy. Like, having sex is a normal part of the human experience. Therefore, ejaculating is a normal function of the human body. There's a reason why our bodies have that function. No porn, completely understandable. I'm 100% on board with that. Porn is destructive on the human mind. But I mean, I don't want to give an exact quote of how often you should ejaculate, but it should be a normal function, but should not be overdone like with anything else. I mean, you can have a couple beers every once in a while and it's not unhealthy, but when you're drinking every day to an overwhelming extent, that's unhealthy. Same with weed, same with any light drug to an extent. If you do it in a healthy way, then yeah, it's fine. If you overdo it, then it's bad. I mean, that's my opinion on it.
I wanted to come in
I
here
don't
and
think
ask.
people
Yes.
know what healthy means anymore. Oh, I'm sorry. I just
No, no,
don't
no.
Vinny, I think you're right,
That is
but I
true.
don't think people know what healthy means. They just like overdo everything. Like, so in order to get them to do the minimum, you have to just sort of shame them into not doing it at all. I mean, it's kind of insane that people have no self-control, but self-control is like a thing that no one cares about, people don't find important. And then to make matters worse, if you have any kind of discipline, you get ridiculed beyond belief. So I think that the opposite of that is that if you just tell people don't do it at all, then if they do it once or twice, I mean, you sort of like
Yeah, if you
you know what I mean?
yeah, if you counteract an extreme with another extreme, you will get a happy balance in between the two at some point. So I do agree with that.
But when it comes to something like Kundalini, though, what I'm really curious about is whether there is some kind of transmutation that happens with that sexual energy that results in there being more Kundalini going through the spine, because that is
Then
not
you
a
could
normal.
reverse it.
Well, that's the whole idea here. Like, it's not a normal process in terms of most people have not really had a Kundalini experience. Most people have not had it shoot up the spine, let alone move around the spine, doing like circles and twists and things of that nature. So when it comes to this very strange thing of Kundalini, where do you guys stand as far as the transmutation of this physical substance into this more spiritual substance, for lack of a better word? So modern hermeticist, I don't know if you've looked into that part of it, but that's also part of the tree of life. That's also part of that whole shebang. So let me know what you think.
Yeah, so, well, I mean, every religion basically has sort of practices of semen retention. It's something that's very common, and it also kind of emerges naturally as a byproduct of a lot of the chastity rules and laws on, no sex before marriage, that sort of thing. Like, these are meant to charge you mentally into getting married. Like, that's what those prohibitions are for. And you have Paul saying, the Apostle Paul saying, like, if you're going to burn, you might as well get married. But being chaste is better, is what he thinks. And so there's that's not just something that's Christian or Jewish necessarily. Usually the idea is that you take those energies and you put them into reproduction, because that is the proper use of the generative force. That you have limited energy, and the appropriate use is to generate things as opposed to waste or squander. But then you also get sort of the usage in ritual, where people are trying to raise the subtlety of their bodies. They're trying to strip themselves of gross material things. So they will eat a vegetarian diet. They will fast rigorously. They will abstain from sex. They will take certain drugs. There's many different factors. They might do, drumming and ecstatic dance or yoga, or there's all kinds of different techniques that are brought together for, it depends on which system you're working with, but it's for contact with the spirits. It's to like we were looking with the Flammarion engraving, with the man bursting his head through the veil. That's really what they're trying to achieve, and they are doing it through a redirection of their energies. So I think there are two sort of approaches to that. There's a ritual approach, and then there's kind of a purity approach, and there's the proper use of generative force approach. And I think that's kind of the gist of it if you look across various faiths and systems.
So it's kind of like a trinity in a way, where you have the spilling the waste, like from that Monty Python Meaning of Life song, every sperm is sacred.
Great song.
Yes. And then you have the use for it in this cycle of life in generating new life. And then you have the other use for it, which is converting it into the spiritual energy so that it shoots up through your spinal column, through the not the Ida, not the Pingala, but the Sushumna Nadi, as they say in these Hindu esoteric tantric practices. This subtle energy, it shoots up right through you, and then you are supposed to experience the feeling of oneness with the universe. And after that, like, the jury is still out for me, because I was never really able to get any concrete answer from people who have had this experience. Like, okay, so you have this Kundalini experience, what comes next? What is the rest of your life like? And I don't know if you, modern Hermeticists, or anybody else have had conversations with people who have had that particular very shocking experience of Kundalini awakening, but let me know if you did, or what you've heard about that whole situation.
Well, I haven't heard about people personally doing Kundalini yoga and having these experiences, but they sound very similar to this like heavy psychedelic experiences. And then the question is, what difference do those heroic doses or those adventures into that space, what do they do? Do they change anything about you? Do they make you a better person? I haven't come out on the other side with a verdict on that one yet, right? Because I know as many douchebags who have seen the face of God as I know people who are very kind and sensitive, intelligent beings. And it's hard to say. So
when you say the face of God, by the way, yes. Go on.
I'm sorry.
No, go on.
I don't know why I haven't had that experience, but I have given birth twice, and it sounds sort of similar. Like my first birth was natural, so I didn't have any medicine or anything at all, and so it sort of sounds like that whole birth and rebirth process of, you got to push this thing out, and you don't have a choice. And it's a whole body sort of experience. So, I mean, that's what I would sort of relate it to, I guess, maybe for a woman, because the whole semen retention thing doesn't work for women.
Right.
You don't have any semen to retain. So the only, I was just thinking, like, what would I compare that to in a process that women actually do have a choice of? And it's got to be like childbirth, because there's no way that you would just willingly have 12 children in the middle of a forest in the or the 1700s, and there's no way you would do it unless there was some sort of experience that you have about it. Now, modern medicine has ruined that experience in its entirety, turned it into something that's completely insane. Especially when you hear about what all these drugs do that you take during the process and even leading up to it. But the actual process itself, it sounds like what you would describe when you actually give birth. Like, oh my gosh, I have this baby, and it's just like a reconnecting of your sort of self. So I think that's the only thing I could really compare it to for women.
Yeah.
And I don't know if anyone's ever heard that, but that's what it sounds like to me.
Well, what did it feel like to you
sense.
when you had the baby? Like, was there a before and after Hotep Sophia?
Yeah, because I mean, there is definitely a change that you go through, which is why you see people who have children, and I'm always like telling people, like, don't wait until this, don't wait until that, like, just start having your kids early enough, your 20s, and sort of get it over with, because the longer you wait, the harder it is, like, just literally to even get pregnant. And then, like, the whole process is kind of like, the younger you are, because my oldest, I had her when I was 22, so I was not that young, but I was old enough. And I was definitely a different person you don't quite go back to being the same emotionally or spiritually, because now you've got this sort of anchor that's holding you into this dimension, and you can't, there's not really a good way of describing it. Enough people who have gone through this process don't talk about it like this. And so I don't really have any other like reference points, but I can say that there's definitely a before you give birth and after you give birth. I've given birth twice, and each time was definitely okay, I will tolerate this much BS up until this point. I'm not in this, especially if you want your children to have a better life than you want to provide more for them. So on and so forth. If you start looking at stuff like real side-eyed, like, oh no, these people do this, I don't need to be around them more. Everybody sending their kids to public school, oh no, not me. I don't want my kids to be around that stuff. So it's definitely like a process where you become just more aware of, unless you're completely corrupted by the media, then all of that stuff goes out the window and you just do whatever the doctor tells you. But if you're a person who is, aware that modern society is corrupt, then you can say, I'm not sure about that. Oh, you want me to do that? I don't know. Like, they don't want you to breastfeed in the house. Well, I'm in Maryland. Maryland is notoriously horrible. So they don't want you to breastfeed. So like with both my kids, I'm like, where are you going? Bring that baby back here. I need to breastfeed right away. But man, you just gave birth. I don't care. I know what happens when you wait. Bring the baby here. Let me try, because I know what's going to happen, because I had read books. I was forewarned. Whatever you can, because if you don't latch on early enough, you have all of these problems. So it's just like, it's sort of like a weird thing to describe, because no one like asks women about this type of stuff, but it is something you have to like constantly be thinking about, like preparing, what's going to happen next, because the doctors, what they tell you is horrible. It's wrong. Every bit of it is wrong.
Yeah, like I don't know exactly what that would be like to give birth, but I definitely imagine that there are all these bureaucratic institutions out there that don't know anything about how to take care of kids or how to make healthy kids, going all the way to, public school and high school and all these various institutions. Like now yeah?
I would say the opposite. I would say that they do know how the human animal works, and they want to disrupt that process. And we were talking about Kundalini earlier,
Yes.
and how that relates to childbirth. And these are very, very human as the animal sort of deals. And when we act as an animal and do these incredibly life-centric events, they're always the most wonderful and sacred. And yeah, like Sophia was saying, the doctors, they want to disrupt the minute one breastfeeding. So I don't know, maybe that child grows up relying on the state more than family, etc.
But I don't think that they're conscious of it, though. Like, I see what you're talking about, but as far as just like the standard doctors that are doing those procedures, the nurses, like they're just programmed, they're just on autopilot when it comes to, well, of course we should, I'm not even going to give examples now, but you can even see it in like kids' food. Like, I'm sure that the people who, distribute the stuff in the school cafeteria, they're not even thinking about how bad all this stuff is for you.
No, I think they're giving way too much credit. No, they absolutely know. There's, on what all these different things do to the body, which is why you have some parents and some schools that don't allow, like, if you, like, the number one school in DC is, like, not Holton Arms, but the ones the Obama kids go to. They have a garden on the top of their school. The people who cook for them, they go out to the garden, they pull the whatever they're gonna cook. They got chickens running around. They have all fresh stuff flown in every day. That's where all of the diplomats, and they all go to this school. They know the difference. It's just that they have their elite that they want to have access to this type of stuff, and then everybody else, you're just gonna sort of take what we give you, because whatever. So they actually know. There's lots of I wish I could think of the name of the book, but there's actually books that were written in the early 1900s about what people should be eating and how kids should be eating. I mean, these are, this is known amongst the people who are in the need to know, and we just kind of have to scrape and guess to figure out, oh, maybe I should eat raw eggs. Oh, maybe I should go get raw milk instead of pasteurized killer milk. Like, they know that. They have their little, and I know it because in this area there's so many farms, and people go out to their farms to pick up all this stuff. They have everything set up. It's no questions about it. If the people, the elite around here know it, the elite everywhere know it. It's just we don't know it.
One quick aside, that for a short amount of time, and I do want to get back into it later on, but for a short amount of time within these couple of months, I tried raw milk, and I measured myself. Before I thought I was just 5'11", I measured myself, and I'm 6 feet now, and I don't know what happened.
Ace.
Is that even possible, though? Is that even possible to grow so tall within such a short amount of time just because you tried some raw milk? I don't know. Maybe.
You gotta go to 6'3", Lev. You can't stop until you're 6'3",
No,
man.
I gotta keep going. I gotta become the Ubermensch. By the way, we have Hika says back with us. Let's see
We
how.
could try that again.
Yes, let's talk
How about better?
Yes.
Yeah, I cleaned up a few things. First off, thanks for having me on, and thanks for inviting me to the discussion. Quite an enjoyable experience.
Thank you for being here.
Happy to contribute.
So one sort of digression before we move too far away from hospital and birthing. Before I joined, we were talking about abduction stories, right, with Grays. Is it just me, or does like abductions and probing kind of sound like pre-conscious baby experiences? Probing sounds a lot like circumcision to me, etc. So it's just something I wanted to mention while I wasn't here.
So if I can actually jump in and contribute a little something there.
Oh, yes. Well, Dexter, tell us a little bit about yourself first, because you're new here, and you are known as the Dogman Respecter. Can you tell us why you're known as the Dogman Respecter?
Well, I am a lifelong fan of the overnight talk radio, right? Especially the OG Art Bell, rest in peace, my personal hero. But even his successors, George Norrie, Heather for a little bit there, Dave Schrader, all of them. I love the overnight talk radio. And when I went to college, I moved to Kenosha, Wisconsin. Now, what some people may or may not know is that the southeast corner of Wisconsin, is in the top 3 densest areas in the nation for dogman sightings. So it just seemed like a natural extension when I was ready to change up my Twitter brand, and it felt pretty indicative of what I'm about and the topics I enjoy. So that's where Dogman Respecter comes from.
Excellent.
But a little introduction for your audience. My name's Dexter. A lot of people on the internet know me as Paz. I am a traveling podcast guest and also a host on the Gaslight Hour, which you may or may not have heard of. We are a top 10 documentary category podcast in Bermuda. So
nice. With the pink sand. I would love to one day go to Bermuda.
Yeah, I would too. It just so happens we have enough people setting their VPNs there that we are a top 10 podcast in their nation. So
And when it comes to this conversation, what were you going to say before I asked you for the introduction?
Well, I was just going to say that with abduction experience and any sort of contact experience sort of situation, we need to be really careful about over-identifying them with any other phenomenon, because abduction and experiencer events in general just correlate to so many other groups that it's impossible to really consider them as being one-to-one with anything. We know for a fact that the military-industrial complex kidnaps and brainwashes people and rewrites their memories. So there's plenty of instances where the abduction experiencer could be that. There are plenty of examples of purely spiritual phenomenon where a person's visited by an angel. But, it's one of those sort of experience or moments. And, just all these other things. And you have so many very different types of situations that I would caution people to be cautious about over identifying that sort of abduction or experience or event with any other thing. It's really hard to create a correlation when it correlates with everything.
So to paraphrase, it's basically there doesn't have to be one explanation. You can have a lot of explanations that are all completely unique and yet overlapping.
Yeah, and the reason it has to be brought up though is because that very nature of it makes it hard to use in any other context outside of its own.
Well, and it's not productive, I guess, in the sense either. Maybe to understand where we are, where the stuff originates, but I don't see how we can really make use of it.
Yeah, and that's kind of all I'm getting at. So,
well, when it comes to the earlier topic of where exactly we are in comparison to these aliens, where you guys were saying that you believe that a lot of the space aliens, that is hokum, that is just some Project Blue Beam bullshit that they're doing to confuse us, while really a lot of these aliens, like Buff was just saying here, is everyone on the panel woke on aliens being demons. And again, like I use demons in the sense of like demons, fairies, angels, jinn, all this astral stuff. But at the same time, if we look out, we do see a really big universe with a lot of different planets on there. But then again, they're so far away that they would not really be the ones that I think we would be able to be in contact with at the same level as people are describing. So where do you guys stand on what exact possibilities are here that you would give credence to as far as this more physical alien life as opposed to the astral one that we were talking about?
I think one question to ask would be basically if there's other alien civilizations and other places that we can't even imagine, why are they here? What purpose do Earthlings specifically serve in the agenda? Because if you have sci-fi tech, scarcity isn't as a thing of the past. You can synthesize elements, you can travel to other galaxies, you can travel to other stars, you can make anything you want. So if such a culture or such a reality exists for them, then what would be the purpose of coming here?
So this is not my personal opinion. This is purely from my research on the Dulce Base files, the actual PDFs themselves. The author basically writes that gray aliens are purposely scientific civilization. They don't show emotions. They are strictly beings to continue on in the research of things. They're basically bugmen, and they come to Earth strictly for scientific purposes. They have no ulterior motives. This gets even to the more weirder side of things. There are different types of gray aliens. There are clones. There are essentially dark gray aliens that are more evil.
And I'm sure you're familiar with the David Icke version, where the aliens are basically interdimensional demons that feed off negative energy, literal food source.
And I found this is a controversial statement, which I didn't realize prior to being on Twitter. But I consider myself Christian, but I have not read enough to really be on the level as the rest of people in this chat. I said aliens are just aliens; they're not demons. And Serpent Mound was rather aggressive in his rebuttal against that. So I'm somewhat unfamiliar with the whole aliens or demons concept. I mean, I consider it. It's definitely an interesting concept, but I have yet to see or read the literature to really prove otherwise. So in my opinion, aliens are aliens from outer space.
Vinny, you mentioned that you were a Christian, yes? What is loosely? Okay. What is your take on the Nephilim, and by extension, I guess the Anunnaki from Mesopotamian literature?
And after Vinny, I want to also then go to Hermes and Outlaw Prime. But go for it, Vinny.
I don't know that much about Nephilim in the story of the Bible, but I do believe Nephilim are 100% real. They found Nephilim bodies on Catalina Island, which is like 2 or 3 hours from me. They found Nephilim in South America. They found Nephilim in the Middle East. I 100% think it's real. I mean, we have verified proof that pygmies exist. If we can have completely proportional humans that are 3 and 4 feet tall, how is it impossible that we have completely proportional humans that are 12 to 15 feet tall? I mean, it's stupid to consider otherwise, in my opinion.
Well, there was a whole thing about the Smithsonian destroying giant statues that I keep hearing. But...
Yep, they collected the Nephilim skeletons from Catalina Island in like 19 something, and like a week later, they conveniently had a fire that burnt down the section of the Smithsonian that the bodies were held in. So a lot of people believe. Go ahead.
Go for
well,
it.
If you want to finish your sentence there, but I've got some stuff to say about this topic once you finish your thought.
I was
sorry about that.
No worries. From my understanding, again, I haven't done more research. This is basically secondhand knowledge from people who know way more than me that gave it to me for context. The Smithsonian is not a good organization, and they're just simply suppressing information.
And Dexter, yes.
Yeah, the reason I wanted to interject there is because giantology is one of my top 2 or 3 passions in the quote-unquote field, right? Mm-hmm. I have dedicated quite a bit of reading myself to the giant question. And I think for disambiguation purposes, we should take some time to consider the difference between the giants, especially the skeletons that the Smithsonian has. I want to use the word allegedly for, legal, legible, and credibility purposes, alleged, because they destroyed them and we don't have any proof anymore. Those wouldn't necessarily have been Nephilim, but perhaps were Nephilim blooded. The Nephilim themselves were the demi race that came from the angels and the daughters of men. But the fact of the matter is the biblical flood supposedly wiped out the Nephilim and everything else that were on earth. Now, we have proof later on in the Bible that races of giants somehow persisted. So whether it was some sort of recessive gene that then later came back post-flood, we don't quite know the full story there. And there's some explanations, like the apocryphal books, the books of Enoch. But the fact of the matter is we then do also have more modern historical sources on the giants. Like you're saying, there was a private museum even on Catalina Island that the Smithsonian confiscated all of their stuff from. But beyond that, there's other instances like Lovelock Cave, where allegedly, again, I want to use that word even though I don't necessarily support its use here. It's important for our credibility, where all those giant skeletons were found, or they're being dug out of mounds across the nation, or being dug up during the FDR's electrification processes in the South, or, even finding bones, in South America. Or you can go back and read the conquistador journals. When the Spanish first showed up here, their captains and their missionaries were talking about meeting giants yet, who, though their numbers were dwindling, were still very much actively living among the Native American tribes as a sort of pseudo-ruler warrior caste in some tribes. So
yeah, Dexter, to your point, I forget which podcast, and I apologize, I might look that up, but I heard about accounts of there being giants amongst the natives on Jekyll Island too, and that this reporter went there and sort of looked at some of the art history there, and the guy telling him around was giving him a history, and it seemed as if they were amongst the natives, but ever so slightly different. Even at the genetic level, and he showed him this skeleton in a grave, and it was like easily 8 feet. So I just want to chime in and say that I've heard similar things as to what you're getting at.
Yeah, and I'll just throw in one last point here before I rant too long on the topic. Even the last independent king of Hawaii, King Kamehameha. Kamehameha.
Curse, yeah. Never mind. Yes.
That gentleman, he was over 7 feet tall, and he was proportionally built out, and there are 2 scale statues of him to this day. So it's not like these things just went away recently or they're a figment of legend. The giants themselves, while their numbers dwindled over time, they were still around very recently. And depending on where you go in South America, there's chances that some of them are even still around. So again, I went on a tangent there. I'm sorry for hijacking your show.
No, this
I
is
just think
exactly
it's
what we
important
need.
that we.
This
yeah,
is
I just-
exactly what we
Didn't they
need.
report the U.S. military killed one in Afghanistan, or was that just
Well, so we need to
extra?
consider where that story came from, though. You know.
Was it X on 4chan or?
No, that came from. It was either Quail or Sala, and for the life of me, I don't remember which one of those two gentlemen it is. But as good a storyteller as they both are, neither of them are particularly credible. So, you know, that's the important thing too, because I see a lot of people post pictures of alleged giant bones and giant skeletons and stuff. And part of the reason it came into the popular mythos in general is because, like Slender Man, it was the topic of a pretty prolific Photoshop competition once upon a time. And there's giantology researchers who have gone out there and created lists of the fake photos and again, alleged real photos so that you know what you're looking at. And just in general, I think giantologists need to be real careful when they're presenting proof, because when you get into things like that, or like Slender Man, you need to be real careful that you're not passing around a doctored photo in your efforts and your zeal to present the case for what I think is a very real phenomena that's been lost to history.
So this one, I think this one is a doctored photo. I'm not quite sure, but just all the monuments that happen to be around this particular giant, they look kind of fake. I don't know. It looks kind of hokey. But are you familiar with this particular photo of the sleeping giant?
Not that particular still. I'm not. No.
So which one would you say is the real thing, or as close as you're able to say is the real thing that I'd be able to find online if I search for the right term and put it on?
Well, and now here I'm actually going to step back a moment, and if you'll permit me to shill a book here for just a moment. I didn't write it. It's not mine, but oh Christ, now the name's escaping
and
me.
Ding Dong says nice beard about the giant. I'm sure that giant appreciates that. Yes, it is a nice beard.
Yeah.
Also, new people who are watching this, subscribe. I'm sure we're getting some people from DLive, so all the DLive people subscribe to YouTube. All the YouTube people subscribe to our DLive, so that if this thing gets shut down, we can go to DLive.
Well, now there's a gap in the market on DLive now that the kill stream has been banned from DLive.
There we go. So
there
now
you go.
Why did it get banned, by the way? I mean, Gio, you were famous for drawing that picture. Does that picture has some psychic energy that...
The same day, the same night, I draw Ethan Ralph passed out on a beach live on Break the Rules. He gets banned from DLive just before the debate for, I believe, saying a number of gamer words. I don't know, something. It was going to happen eventually because it's Ethan Ralph, but who knows? But there's a gap on DLive now, so hopefully we will fill in where the void of the kill stream is. So it will be the BTR stream now. So
For sure.
The Lord works in mysterious ways.
Indeed. And also we got Outlaw Prime. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? You are new to the stream.
I'm new to the stream, yeah. I've watched it for a while, actually. And I'm a Scythian Magi, and I was just now joined, so I'm not sure what we're defining aliens as, but I was thinking about it today, and I think I'd consider, interdimensional beings like dragons or fae, that such things like that as aliens, because, they're ultimately they're creatures, but they're not man at all, and they have deep symbological meaning like we do. Although, like, men are endowed with the image of God, which I think when you make a distinction between what's an alien and what's a man, because we basically mean what's alien to man. I feel it's important to not see it as like an ecosystem rather than an ego system, where it's like humans are like the number one, and then anything alien is like, below us or something, or they have to, something that a lot of people mix up is that, like, these creatures, whatever we want to call them, aliens or, fae, for example, they don't go by human morals at all, they go by their morals. And you can see the ego of humanity really kicks in when dealing with that, because we like to think of ourselves as, they're the aliens, we're the, number one. But the only place that I feel the only way to fully without any ego or anything, differentiate the two of us is that we are made in the image of God and they're not. They serve as a different symbol in the story of life, and our symbol is not more important, but it's, you know, it sets us apart from them. So I know you were talking about Nephilim and stuff. I'm not sure how much you've talked about aliens. I heard Vinny was talking about how some people think aliens are like demons or something. And I mean, of course, demons are alien, but not all
I would love to get
alien things
the
are demons.
Interesting.
I would love to get the perspective of Kristan Harris, who is just joining us right now. And Kristan, you have recently gotten pretty famous from the videos you were shooting in Kenosha. And Dexter, you are from Kenosha. And I think both of you guys are going to have a lot in common, a lot to talk about. I don't know, Dexter, if you're familiar with the show The Rundown Live. It is a radio show that runs in, which areas would you say it covers, Kristan?
Well, pretty much now with the internet, we reach everywhere. Do I sound all right?
You sound perfect. Perfect, yes.
All right. Just reaching out there, obviously. Yeah, I guess Milwaukee is where we're out of. We've been around for almost 10 years. We were syndicated through Truth Frequency Radio, 90.7 FM, Denver, Colorado, 97.3, Eugene, Oregon, amongst many other places. iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, on and on, podcast apps on Google Play, iTunes App Store. You can pretty much find us just about everywhere right now. And we're in the front pages of just about every major TV network too, as far as citizen journalism goes. So very, long time coming and well overdue. But I'm really excited about this topic because it's something I haven't had a chance to talk about for a few years. Obviously, somebody who's well versed and researched into the esoteric. I believe what you guys are describing in collective here is the stories of the books of Enoch or even Sumerian texts. There's many different translations, but the translation I read is that there was a war in the heavens, as in space, and the losing team came here on this planet on Earth and developed this great culture, whether it's Atlantis or Zion. They had different names for it. And those deities that came from another planet may have been described to us in a way that we understand as angelic and or, by definition, they would be alien beings. So these alien beings, based on the books of Enoch, they were jealous at the creation of man. They made man like they can make man now in a petri dish because their technology was so advanced. So they saw man and they were warned not to mate with this creation, and they did, and that brought forth giants. They said the giants were large and they were their hunger was unquenchable to where they became cannibalistic. That's why you always have the stories of fee fi fo fum, they're going to cook you in the pot, the big trolls and everything like that. And in Wisconsin, where we're from, they found giant human skeletons in Indian effigy mounds. I went to the Library of Congress, and I even went to Wisconsin Archaeological Society, anthropology. Gee, I'm going to verbal disaster here. Anthropological Society. I think that's the way you say it. There you go. Yes. Do I get extra points for that struggle? There's a lot of interesting things here where they found human skeletons between 9 and 15 feet tall, not just one, but a collective of these, like a race of giants. And I know you guys were talking about what Dogman is. That how come we have a cool name? How come he doesn't have a cool name? We have Minotaur, Cinotaur. Why isn't he like a Anubatar after Anubis, the dog god? Why do we have to call him Dogman? It's like, yeah, that's a man, bear, pig there. I think Al Gore.
There's a Dogman saint. There's a saint, Saint Dogman.
He's like Saint Christopher.
Is that what it is?
Oh, Saint Christopher, yeah. Yeah, and he was a dog man.
Supposedly a dog-headed man, yeah.
Yeah. And that's something that's been.
Is this related to the Dark Ages monk drawings of dogmen?
Well, Saint Christopher was well before their time, I believe, but
I see.
Yeah, he's I heard someone say myth, and it's like myth. It's like when someone says like, oh, but that's just a symbol. It's like, the symbol is the higher form. It's more real than, you know, what we consider
It is the
real.
real.
So
Well, and you
yeah,
know, even
so
if it weren't a mere symbol, the Catholic Church has not been in the practice, you know, say whatever you want about them, but they've never in their history been in the practice of making saints of people they can't confirm existed in some
Yeah,
record of
yeah.
theirs.
Well, the
Yeah.
saints are just the pantheon gods reimagined. That's why we have them. Christ was actually against sainthood. He said we were all saints, and that basically what they took is when Rome found itself threatened, what they did is they adopted the mystery school religion of these pantheon of gods and disguised them as sainthood. That's why they're identical, and that's even why the Catholic citadel there in Rome is laid out with an obelisk, which is the phallic of Osiris or the phallic of Nimrod with Immaculate Conception there. And that's where they get the term born again, is the phoenix being born from the ashes. So they literally combine the mystery religion and Catholicism just because they wanted to appeal and not lose their power, but use the Christian religion as a form of control.
Well, and at this point, I'd point out that I'm also a proud Protestant, so you don't need to try and make me woke to that.
I don't know.
You know,
That's
I'm already
kind of a
with
sus
you.
take right there. I don't know.
Yeah, Geo's not that for that, but we
Geo's
also
got
have
words.
we also have Helios Logos joining us. I was actually thinking
Yes,
for
Rogue
Helios.
Helios moment.
Yes, I was
Rogue Helios moment.
I was actually thinking of inviting Helios Logos as soon as we started talking about the Nephilim, because as far as where human beings come from and also the size of human beings, Helios, you lean on the whole coming out of Venus story. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I picked up rogue transmissions just floating in the atmosphere, and I was like, "Fuck, my people need me. I am summoned. I come to the stream." So yeah, I'm here. Because I just knew, like, I had got telepathic communication that people were talking about giants, and it was imperative that I show up, make an appearance.
Synthetic telepathy is strong in this one. He has the headband of righteousness.
Did you? Okay, I'm gonna be an asshole and ask. Did you retweet this stream to your people?
I will. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. We need more people. I'm going full shill mode these next weeks because we gotta grow and we gotta expand beyond YouTube.
Okay, but you have to shill me. You have to tell me to subscribe to my YouTube channel.
Subscribe to Sunblind. I'm posting it right in the Discord channel right now. Go there immediately and subscribe to Sunblind.
I'm almost to 1,000 subscribers. You have to subscribe. It's
yes.
important.
No, Helios is catching up on us. He is going at a rapid rate. So in this race, Helios is winning right now, but we're gonna use his energy to grow stronger as well. So we're both going to keep each other going.
People.
It's funny that all you guys are trying to stay on YouTube while I'm trying to get off the social media ghetto to go to more profitable lands like Library or D Live where I can.
We're on D Live right now.
So,
no, dude, we're on D Live right now. We're multi-streaming.
Hey, look, it shows you. I got zoomed in. So I guess I apologize. Good job. Nice.
But yeah, giants. Enough shilling, giants. The giants, yeah, I like Vinny was saying, shout out to Vinny. They're definitely real, and they have like archaeological evidence to prove that there are skeletons, but also you got like the proliferation of elongated skulls throughout a lot of the
Paracas skull.
Well, you got it like in Peru, and then there's also in Patagonia. Then they find them in North America, and there are all these skulls that are like very strange looking compared to normal human skulls, and also compared to like Neanderthal skulls. They're both like very different from the average human skull of today, which has much more gracile bones and much more softer features. The bone is a lot thinner too. But then you look at these elongated skulls, and the brain section of it is just like it either goes out the back or out the top. So like a good example is the skull of Nefertiti. Her skull just like goes long, crazy out the back, like bangs out the back. You know what I'm saying? Goes hard type beat. And but then you also have like the Paracas skulls from Peru, and they come straight out the top, and they're like super like tall, and they almost kind of look like a fucking cone head. So there's also like a motif that a couple of us have noticed on Twitter between elongated skulls and pointy hats. So if you ever see a picture of, I don't know how to say the word, but it's like the Phrygian cap. It's a cap traditionally worn by the god
Phrygian.
Papa Smurf.
Phrygian. Yeah, basically. Also, like the the hoods that are used in some Catholic rituals that are reminiscent of the Ku Klux Klan, but
In Spain,
they're visited
particularly
first.
in Italy, yeah.
So they don't get to be called racist. I'm sorry. And then there's also like a lot of traditional Japanese headgear that has these very, especially in like their more priestly roles, they have like these silk caps that are also very tall and pointy and elongated. And like all of that is a callback to giants. So they're like the crown of Upper Egypt is a long, elongated white crown that is reminiscent of a skull, even with a very large kind of knobby end on the bit at the end of it. Now, I've seen some people compare these to different plasma phenomenon in the sky that they're like saying that that's what it is, but it's definitely more a callback to a skull shape. And then you can also look at tribes in Africa that traditionally will practice skull deformation, where they like wrap bits of like tendon and animal sinew, and like they'll wrap it with cane and wood and beads, and they'll like artificially deform the skull. And a lot of people say that that's just what elongated skulls are, that they're artificial cranial deformation. But there's a big difference between when you look at the skull of someone who has undergone artificial cranial deformation, and then when you look at the skull of somebody like we'll look at one of the elongated skulls that we're talking about. With the artificial cranial deformation, the skull itself kind of looks like somebody, like a fat bitch sat on their head. You know what I mean? Like it's all crushed and squished, and it's like if you've ever get like a big like a plastic bag and fill it with beans. Okay, fill a plastic bag with beans. Now squeeze the middle of the bag. The beans will artificially move to either side of the bag, but it'll leave the center kind of lacking in beans. And that's exactly what those Africans' skulls look like. They're lacking in beans. They don't have enough beans in the middle of their head. The beans have been squished to either side because they put rubber bands around the bean bag.
Now, does this promote growth of these other areas while detracting from the
I'm pretty sure it just makes you fucking stupid.
Okay.
It's
So
an
with
interesting
the
question, though.
with the
So
head
you're saying
binding,
the thin skulls of white pedigree males, if you get the reference? The thin... Francis Deck was right, then?
Male fragility?
So check this out.
Francis E. Deck was right. The white skull, the thin
Kristan?
skulls.
It so happens I know L.A. Marzulli and Brian Forrester both personally. So that's two actually individuals have done extensive research on this. In fact, my friend Chase Kletchka, she's a former master instructor, master trainer at the Department of Defense. She did the DNA test on the Paracas skull that was very controversial a few years. In fact, Brian Forrester is controversial because he has had some very questionable ethics and things that he has done. However, L.A. Marzulli, although very religious in his viewpoints, has done some incredible scientific reviews and research under the Paracas skulls and their differences. And they actually believe the opposite, that these beings were hyper intelligent, not that they were, so much less intelligent because of deformation of their head. And I think you're onto something. So the reason why kings wear crowns and the reason why crowns look the way they do is because the crown represents the sun, because you're supposed to illuminate those around them. And that's why they interbred, because they were obsessed with this Luciferian mystery religion where they interbreed. And that's why the elite to this very day who wear crowns interbreed, because they believe in this manifestation in some form or another of ritual.
Well, a lot of that interbreeding is also to preserve ancient gene lines that would otherwise basically disappear. And that's where you see a lot of god kings in like Britain and stuff that are buried in these sacred burial mounds that have like really strange genetic like phenotypes that are rarely found in other gene pools, where you have like dark-skinned men with light hair and light eyes, and it's just like this weird and kind of stuff. And the same thing with like King Tut, who also was like inbred but had also very strange genetic makeup that is very uncommon to see. So you see lots of these old bloodlines that are being preserved through inbreeding, and that's like a super common trope when you have something that's rare like this elongated skull, because of course King Tut is like the son of Nefertiti, so they're preserving their, you could say it's like the blood of the Nephilim that they're preserving and passing down from generation to generation, not trying to water it down too much. So they resort to inbreeding to keep that genetic line stronger, even though it weakens the rest of their offspring and making them basically, I mean, King Tut was like so fucking cursed. He's like the most cursed pharaoh of all time. And then when they finally remove him from his sarcophagus, then all hell breaks loose on the world. So just so you know, that's why everything this year sucks shit, is because they took King Tut out of the sarcophagus, breaking the curse of Nefertiti, like, and letting it loose on the world. So COVID-19, it's Nefertiti's fault. And you don't want to mess with the long head queen. You don't know what the fuck she's got up in that big ass bean head of hers. You know what I mean? Like the spells and curses that she could wind through time.
That was like the
Like,
barbarians had,
yeah.
elongated skulls. That's why they found who is a documentarian that does the
All
art
right,
history.
sorry, Gio, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody. Bye, thank
You're
you.
leaving Helios
Rogue
already?
Helios moment. Goodbye. Yes, Rogue Helios moment is
another
over.
Helios moment.
Rogue
Take care.
Helios. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
I'm leaving.
Bye.
Bye. Subscribe. Bye.
Subscribe.
But yeah, the barbarians apparently had the elongated heads, and that's why they found what's the art historian? He's Polish, but he's British. He does the BBC show. He was saying that's why they found those like tiny crowns, because they would balance it on their elongated heads. But they discovered that the barbarians were probably steppe peoples from the Caucasus regions. So they were the noble steppe people. So
You guys know that Julius Caesar faced a bunch of Celt giants that they described to be about 12 feet tall, and there was an army of 200 of them and destroyed an army of 2,000 Roman soldiers. And the Celts were well known to be, giants and tall in that area as well. That's why we have a lot of those stories. The giants weren't just specific to one local area of the world. The skeletons are being found just about everywhere, and places that we didn't even know people lived, like Australia, which was allegedly populated by a bunch of criminals. So
Yeah, it's no
Yeah.
coincidence that there's so many reports of giants' bones in throughout France and Sardinia too. It's all over Europe. It's not just North American.
I remember it. They were Celtic giants. I was one of them. I'm one of them still. And
As
the guy that was killed in Afghanistan, that was my cousin. So I've beef with the US military. I'm going to say it right now.
the French
And
guy,
everyone in this stream is complicit. We're sending bombs to the Pentagon. Unabomber style.
boy.
in Minecraft,
In Minecraft,
don't
yes.
in
In
Minecraft.
Minecraft.
And some of the
Just
giants,
in case the glowies are watching.
yes, some of the giants, I think, this is just my opinion, I think some of them ended up devolving into the Yeti and Bigfoot. So I think that the Yeti and Bigfoot are relatives of these giants, long lost Harrier
There are
relatives.
theories that Bigfoot is actually like a metaphysical entity, because the reason that you can't find their body is because they sort of they like no clip when they get killed or whatever.
There was
From what I've heard about Bigfoot, and again, my experience is limited. I'm relatively new to doing deep research into this stuff. Is he's a remnant of the Gigantopithecus of the megafauna period. So he's just a giant fucking monkey. And I mean the ESP stuff is still present in a lot of the theories about specific primate species. So it's very possible that he's just one of the last remaining Gigantopithecus, and is just an extremely intelligent species.
There's an alternative possibility, is that the Australopithecus is actually ultra advanced civilization, so that the reason why we never find them when they're killed is because they recover the bodies.
I mean, that is
it would
possible.
look the same from our perspective.
Why can't it work the other way around? Right? Like, why can't we start up with a human, and then the human becomes a monkey man? Slowly over.
We returns to monk.
The return is complete.
Yes, exactly.
No, but I feel that like the discussion around these things are sort of
hazy.
They're hazy because we don't exist within a complete sort of synthesis of all.
We don't have
knowledge.
the big picture.
Exactly,
Yeah,
because
sure.
there are a lot of forces out there, whether we want to call them glow in the darks or not, that are sort of distorting the information fields from which we operate to assume a lot of these things.
Right. That
And we
anything
don't-
we use to get evidence, and any
Yeah.
type of media or evidence that we use comes from the same establishment. So it's
Exactly.
everything is
Yeah.
distorted by the lens that we view it from. So it's almost like we can't get a full picture of any of this stuff because it
Yeah.
comes from through these particular lenses.
Exactly, and there's a fundamental sort of epistemic break, and this is why I tell people that conspiracies are perfectly valid. What do I call them? They're perfectly valid political ontologies, because when we're dealing with an information sphere, because information is everything, we sort of don't have a right to say that yes, this narrative above all else is the right one, and there's such a thing as conspiracy theories, because the word conspiracy was created by the OSS and the Dulce brothers, and it's all a psyop. I'm not subtweeting someone. Don't worry about that. But yes, largely, the word conspiracy theory itself is a psyop.
I can go on a tangent on that, actually.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
what is
so-
the opposite of a conspiracy theory? It's a coincidence theory. So a coincidence theory is the idea that nothing is connected, that things happen completely coincidental.
Non-causally.
So a conspiracy theory would be something like, oh, Jeffrey Epstein is running a global pedophile network and recruiting children and controlling the world elites. The coincidence theorist would say that, oh, it's just this random billionaire that happens to fly a lot of rich, important people to an isolated island with a lot of kids on it. That's the coincidence
It just
theory.
happened to be rich and
it just
powerful.
happens.
Just
You know,
coincidence.
the coincidence theory. Rich people don't talk to each other. That's crazy.
No, sorry, I'm not going to go there.
Coincidence theory. I love that meme though.
Do you think it's also related to like the idea that people have of the universe starting out with nothing and not really having any kind of plan or thought in place of what happens, versus people who think that everything is here for a particular reason and that thought does determine the outcome? So that is kind of like the ultimate conspiracy theory, where you as the individual are conspiring for a certain outcome where your thoughts affect reality.
So, to interject here, if I can dive back in, I think we might be going a little bit too far and giving ourselves as humans a little bit too much credit to say that we have chaos magic engines in our head and we can alter the random number generator of the universe. But I would say that synchromysticism is an extremely valid investigative technique. And, no greater mind than David Lynch himself proved as much in Twin Peaks, right, with Agent Cooper. So, coincidence or not, coincidence doesn't have to be a meme, and it doesn't have to be a bad thing, because once you start plucking on those individual threads, sometimes you do find an actual conspiracy you never knew about in the coincidences.
No, I didn't mean it as an either or. I meant that there's extremes in either thinking.
Yeah.
That there's the pattern recognition that's way too sensitive, and then there's the pattern recognition that's broken.
Have you guys ever looked into Project Pegasus?
Is that the Andy DiBasiago stuff?
Sounds like David Icke too, or no, David Wilcock, was it?
No, that'd be, you're right with the Andy Basiago. He was one of many people who have claimed to be part of it. I was just curious because a lot of the things you talk about tap into Project Pegasus as well as MK Ultra. So,
well, as far as MK Ultra goes, I don't know if I'm necessarily in Basiago's school about it, but I am a huge fan of Peter Levenda's work on MK Ultra. And I know he's a little bit of a controversial figure because of some of the people he draws patronage from, but I think his scholarship on the matter has been very good for those of you who haven't kept up with him.
And what is his work in relation to MK Ultra?
So his big work was, what was it called? I believe the first book, he had a trilogy that traces the origins of MK Ultra from just before World War II up through the Manson era with the spike of UFOs and then into our current modern era. And basically his theory, he's sort of more in the ultra terrestrial school itself, even though he doesn't necessarily make it entirely clear for us all the time. So, he just, when I say scholarship, I mean legitimate scholarship. take no firm stance on his particular conclusions, only in the documentation that he was able to put together for us and for himself. The names of the books are the Sinister Forces Trilogy, and the number of documents that he's been able to dig out through the course of writing those books, and the number of connections he's been able to draw through the American elite establishment is truly something to behold. He puts in the work like no one else in conspiracy research.
There was one thing that I really wanted to ask Helios Logos, but he only gave us a tease, and I guess we're going to have to go into his podcast to find out more. But he has this theory about how a lot of these Nephilim, or a lot of these aliens, angels, whatever you want to call them, who came down to Earth, how they were originally from the planet Venus. And now they're also finding life on the planet Venus. And it's a very interesting thing for me to think about, as far as, like I said before, like, we are in this giant galaxy, and there's bound to be other creatures, and I don't think they're going to look like goofy-looking aliens like in Star Trek. I think they would look like us, but they would probably be a lot taller, and they would live much longer. And also, I also subscribe to that Rudolf Steiner idea. I'm curious what you guys think of it, where the primordial beings are not flesh. They are more like an astral form that eventually starts to solidify. So, Outlaw Prime, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's 100% true. And I also just wanted to say, Gio brought up something about Bigfoot that it links into this. I remember reading about this gentleman who was lost in the woods, and basically his account of a Bigfoot encounter is a familiar tale to anyone who's dealt with these kind of creatures. Not Bigfoot, I don't know anything about that, but in the sense that he said he was just walking into a clearing in the woods alone, and he just suddenly had this feeling. He has this feeling like, something shifted, like something's just completely off. Intuitively felt this, and time started to go slow. I think he said, like, leaves were moving at a strange pace, and he turned around and saw what he described as Bigfoot, huge, Sasquatch type thing, and it walked through the trees. There's actually an illustration somewhere on the internet of the Bigfoot like phasing through the tree, and he was frozen in like fear. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, he said like Jesus or something when he was scared, and then Bigfoot went away or some shit like that. That might have just been added in my head, but I think it's important to remember, like you just said, a lot of these creatures, like when I mentioned dragons earlier, dragons aren't like fucking Skyrim monsters flying through the fucking skies like shooting fire, And actually, I'm gonna shout out Black Pope Vice on Twitter. I don't know if any of you know him, but he knows his stuff. Yeah, Black Pope Vice, follow Gio. But he also he really talks about this stuff often. And I don't expect many people to know about this, but when you do, you understand, like, things don't have to be physically here to be real at all. And a lot of these things that are astral, entities, they're very much as real as us. And when you interact with them, you kind of realize how they work, and you see them. I mean, the materialist wants to see something with his own eyes, but he won't accept seeing it with his third eye, and it's just as real in the third eye. So I think, if we're going to talk about, are aliens real or not, and if we're going to go by the definition of angels or spirits or whatever count as aliens, then of course, probably some of us in here, and I'm sure a lot of listeners, have met and spoken and dealt with aliens, and they're not. They don't really sit around all day thinking, are humans real? That's all I'm going to say.
Hey, Love, I got a little bit on this.
Go for it.
I'm going to disagree with the whole Venus analogy, and I'm going to tell you why.
Okay.
So we get the term Satan from the term Saturn. Satan comes from Saturn, that mythology. And that's where we get Saturn was the furthest planet from the sun, or the son of God, hence why it was the dark or the furthest from God. And the number 6 is representative of Saturn, or the hexagon. And I find it interesting that they have a hexagon on the top of the planet. How did they know that? Because that's where these beings came from. They taught this. That's where we get Satanism from. It's from the Saturnia, or what Rome was before was Saturnia, or the number 6. And 6 is also sacred because it represents 9 in sacred geometry, and every sacred geometrical figure has 9 in it. So when we start looking at the etymology behind these things, the sun and the crown and illumination versus Saturnia, or Satanism, and the perversion of the story, I believe that the Nephilim would have come from Saturn most likely, and that's just a different viewpoint I found from my research. And I just want to throw that I don't agree with it. Also, I have to mention, by the way, Outlaw, something that I would really consider is that we only see a very small, minute amount of the light spectrum with our eyes. It's very possible, and I'm surprised yet that in our world that there aren't animals that are alive outside of our visual spectrum of light that we can see, that we haven't come across from. I don't know what the mathematic odds are, but we see very little of the spectrum of light. And if you could bend that, or you can, offer different ways or animals that could, come back and forth into that spectrum of light, it's very possible that there could be a physical object that we just can't see.
So we do have some pushback on this right now in the chat. So there is an article, well, a tweet article that I linked to from Helios Logos, who he should really come back here and explain all this instead of me narrating it, but fine, I'm going to do it. Anyway, his article talks about the planet Saturn. And also in the chat, it says over here, hexagon on Saturn is literally, this is from Vale. Thank you, Vale, for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you have not. Hexagon on Saturn is literally the elemental presentation of its composition. Stop linking it to anything else. Biochemistry is all hexagon. Hexagon is on the top of the planet is a misinterpretation of photo stitching from geosynchronous orbits and the orientation of the axis throughout the year. Game of associations is not knowledge, blah, blah, but a machine could see that. Okay, and before that, we have a comment that Satan in Hebrew means the adversary, so that is not Saturn.
It's the furthest planet from the sun that they knew at that time. That's why we get Satan from Saturn.
But that Hebrew word, that's not correct, though, what they said? That it does not mean adversary, Satan?
Well, it does. That is its definitional meaning, but we're talking about etymology.
We're not going into scientific. We're going into what the societies of mystery schools believe. We're going into a religious aspect of the philosophy behind it.
Not the literal truths, but the etymology and definitions.
I wanted to piggyback on Outlaw.
Go for it. Hotep Sophia, go for it.
I just wanted to piggyback on what he was saying, because I definitely ascribe to that theosophy sort of experience. And I would just say that it really depends on your level of consciousness. So this is a conversation that can be in all different levels of consciousness. So describing it, like you said, it could look like a Bigfoot, but it could really be like that's just the way your brain sort of organizes what you're seeing. And so I think that all of these conversations, people just have to remember that you have different perspectives, because you may be on, so you see things that other people can't see them. And basically a lot of the religions is literally people classifying things the way that they can see them. So like, I believe everything in the Bible is true, but I think that it depends on who said it and what they were actually viewing. Like you could see something like yesterday, it came up in Matthew, he was talking about people have said an eye for an eye and you shouldn't do that or whatever. But I'm like, well, when you get into talking about that, who is Matthew? Like you have to, where was he coming from, as opposed to some of the other authors in the Bible. So it really just depends on not only like who is saying it, where it came from, but what their particular worldview is, because I think that we all have different worldviews, and being that, it just puts us on different spheres of understanding. And so, these kind of conversations are great to have, so you can see what other people, how they put their world together. But like to say that there's one definitive truth or anything like that, I just always find that to be problematic because there cannot possibly be one definitive truth when people are different, literally, and they have different experiences. You can find things that make sense to you, but just to be like, oh, well, this is like how scientists do. This is the science. Okay, great. So what if I don't believe your science? What if your science is like on the raw milk? What if your science tells me that raw milk is going to kill me? I drank raw milk and I grow 2 inches. Like, then what? So what am I supposed to make?
You're about to start another raw milk thread.
You told me.
Oh boy!
The moment you mentioned raw milk,
I'm sorry.
the chat. No, this is good because we're inspiring a lot of people to get back into the raw milk movement. But the modern hermeticist, you were writing something in the chat about the planet Saturn. I really want to ask you. You haven't been vocal that much right now, but I think you've been storing your energy and waiting to unleash it. So, can you talk about your perspective on the planet Saturn? Whether you agree with Kristan, disagree, whatever you want.
Well, I mean, if you want my perspective on Saturn, I would say go over to my channel and watch this 2-part documentary that I put together recently. It's about 2 hours, so there's 2 hours worth of stuff to talk about. So I won't try to summarize it all here. There's visuals and it's all, you know.
Go to the Modern Hermeticist channel, but could you say if there is an influence of Satanism regarding the planet Saturn?
So I wanted to talk about this. The etymology of Saturn is from the Latin word sero, which is I plant in the ground, and the fourth participle, passive participle part is sactus. And so that means like planted. And that's where the word Saturnus comes from, this planted etymology. And in antiquity, guys like Cicero thought that it was from saturaretur annis, which is, you know, filled up with the years, because the idea is Saturn eats all of his children. And he's also the outermost planet, and so he contains within his own orbit all of the other planets. And so that's really where the etymology of Saturn comes from. The Satan connection comes much later, and it's mostly just because Saturn often is representative of malefic influences. He's one of the greater unfortunes in astrology. And people associate Saturn bad, Satan bad. They sound similar in English now. They're the same thing. But if you go back into the history, there's not really this link between Saturn and Satan.
Well, I'm saying the word Satan came from Saturn. That's why we have the term Satan.
No, it came from the adversary.
Yeah, but the Pyrrhute etymology of it. Yeah, correct. Yeah, so we're saying the same thing. So
yeah,
excellent.
Don't they have like a different? Don't they have a different conception of evil in Jewish theology? Like it's not exactly.
It's astrotheology, very much so. A lot of people believe. I think that's why when I mentioned that Saturn is the furthest from the sun is deified as the son of God or holiness. And since at that time Saturn was the furthest known planet, it was deemed Satan. And that's why I was trying to get there as far as the number 6 in the hexagon being, very coincidental importance. It's because it was the 6th planet from the sun. That's where we get that number, and that's why it represented it. And even in magic, the 6th is what is that is the male or the female. I think that's the male branch of the stars that you look at is the 6-pointed star, because it has the phallic, versus the 5-pointed star, it does not have the phallic. That's when you look at symbolism. I've had a lot of discussions on this stuff with people that talk about symbolism, and it's important because the mystery religion is all based on symbolism, in my opinion, and everyone has different interpretations. And that's why I appreciate Helios, because to be able to have conversations and to be able to provide all evidence, no one's perfect. If I have a conversation with somebody like Jordan Maxwell, I don't agree with him, just like I'll completely, but I tell you what, the guy's smart as can be, so whether or not you believe he's a
admiralty law.
All philosophers are what do they call them? All philosophers are they steal everyone's stuff. So
no, but what I mean isn't isn't in like in Kabbalah, isn't it like they have a different conception of evil than like your usual like Christian Augustinian conception of evil? I don't know, maybe modern hermeticist, you could maybe talk about that a little bit. Because like in Judaism, they don't exactly have the same like.
I will say one thing
attachment
before
to-
moving to modern hermeticist, because I think he is much more knowledgeable about the Kabbalah than I am. My own ventures into this world lead me to believe that there is this process of transmuting egoism into altruism, where the state of the creator is one of giving without the need to receive, and that is Keter, the crown. That is the 1,000-petaled lotus. That is basically that one thing out of which everything else emanates. It is like the great emanator of everything that we're around, and the actual process of the emanation, that circle of life, that energy, that's Shakti. That is the female primordial energy that animates the entire universe. So that is the way that I look at it in relation to what it comes out of. And as far as I understand, the Kabbalist idea would be to transmute oneself to a higher state like that of the creator, where they would not be attached to a lot of these material comforts, because in all the material comforts, including even like mutual, love towards your wife and kids, you still end up getting something out of it. You still end up getting out of it a satisfaction of, oh, look at me, I have all these wonderful things in life, and I'm getting something out of the love that they're showing towards me. So there is a receiving process going on here, and the idea is to transmute that receiving process into a giving process, but that is my very limited knowledge of what is going on here in this whole transmutation Kabbalistic process. So, modern hermeticist, can you pick it up from there and correct anything that I said that may be steering in the wrong direction?
Yeah, so Gio asked about the problem of evil in Judaism, and I think, at least in terms of Kabbalah, which is a relatively later phenomenon in Judaism, it's more something that emerges in the Middle Ages. When we look at that, it's very much similar to Neoplatonic ideas of good and evil, which are the same as Augustine's, whereby evil is just a privation of good. It's
an absence,
a lack. It's like a hole in a cloth. It's not really a thing. It's just a lack of a thing. And so we have God as the one, the true, the beautiful, and he is emanating outward, cascading down his goodness. And because in being the good, he wants to self-diffuse himself, and he does that in the form of light. And then the light is to be received by various shells. And so what happens is that the shells cast shadows when they capture light, and that is essentially one of the places where evil can thrive, so to speak. And you get later on development of notions like the Qliphote, which is like an inverted tree of life. And it is in the same way that all the Sephirot are vistas into God, that is one, but through various different colors, so to speak. There are also different shadow husks of evil, that those are manifold as well. And that's the Qliphote, and that's a different system. But I wouldn't say that that's necessarily something that all Jews believe or anything like that.
There are other ones, like that believe that there is no like a metaphysical conception of evil, but that's pretty much like straight up like Neoplatonic, Platonic, like analogy of the sun type stuff, right? Like you block. Wait, I'm trying to do the fucking thing. You block, because the sun is what illuminates all good. Like the way that the sun illuminates all objects, the form of the good is like what. Yeah,
but that's also like the theory of the forms. I mean, the allegory of the cave, I meant to say, which is also kind of connected to that too, where you would have shadows being projected in the cave that people would mistake for the real thing, and that may be those same husks that you were just talking about right now. And I wonder if there is a place for the two of us to kind of meet when it comes to the idea of infatuation, that people get absorbed and infatuated with those shadows, with the certain reality that they're living in, instead
But
of,
that's like,
yeah.
but to me, that seems like a basis of even a lot of like modern conspiracy thinking. A lot of, well, actually, I would say a lot of like from politics to theology to everything, it all intertwines because a lot of systems, it seems to be a fundamental truth of like, there's this good, there's this gnosis, and then there's the dark that's sort of like blocking it out. And it seems that a lot of the way we think about everything from politics to economics to theology, it seems that we're always sort of trending back towards these primal truths. And even nowadays, like, if you want to put a word on it, globalists, reptilians, glow in the darks, you name it, right? Like, it seems that there's still that fundamental Gnosticism that has become, transmuted into a secular sort of like political lens. Even the way we talk about like cryptology and Bigfoot and things like that, it seems that there's a fundamental sort of like spiritual energy underlying a lot of these things. And like, for example, a lot of people do think that Kabbalah came basically out of like Neoplatonic mystery schools and all of that stuff. So,
well, they all have a similar process of ascension, like that blueprint, whether you see it in the chakras, whether you see it even, I can venture to say, in the Sumerian tree of life, where you have those two birdmen that are standing next to the tree, and they have the cone that they're placing at it. And it's also an allegory for the human body as well, because our body, I think, is a representation of the universe in a fractal sense, where we go like from below our reproductive areas going all the way up to the brain, and then the crown. We were talking about crowns before, the crowns that kings wear. Oh, that crown is kind of like that portal into oneness, into the true light. And we see it represented in our fashion as well. So,
well, that's kind of what Crowley, reaching back to what we were discussing way ago, is Crowley was trying to take the chakra system of the East and sort of meld it onto the Tree of Life and the Sephiroth of the Kabbalah. Now, however accurate or correct you think he achieved that, the system did, insofar as the OTA is concerned, it did generate some pretty striking results with their various workings. So, I mean, I think maybe there might not be a one-to-one correlation, but you are correct, Lev, in pointing out that there is absolute correlations between these. And sort of how we were talking in our previous art stream, I feel that this is another example of sort of universal forms playing themselves out again and again from various cultures that would maybe otherwise not interact.
I could see that. And also I want to go to Zac Waldman. Zac, how are you? And even though we were talking about cryptids and aliens earlier, these things I think are very related. So do you have any thought on Jewish mysticism, Kabbalah, any of these things? Oh, your mic's off. Everybody subscribe. New people who are watching this, who are here from Helios Logos, subscribe. Zac, your mic is off. You got to turn your mic on. Yes, we can.
Okay, unmute. Am I unmuted? Am I good? You muted me, so it's cool.
Okay.
Well, first off, I'm glad that I got into it when I did. It's always fun to hear a little bit about Neoplatonic ideals. I'm a big fan of Platonius and kind of everything that came out of that. Although I will say that my interest in it goes towards, I connect it to simulation theory. So I don't. Is it okay if we chat about that for a second?
Go for it. Yeah.
Okay, so this concept of Neoplatonic ideals being kind of a base place from which a lot of the mystic elements of the religions that we know kind of grew out of it. Platonius describes not just I think what he does is really interesting. So he's they describe two types of gods. Kind of the big God, the unknowing one, the completely unknown, the one, the highest level, and then and I'm gonna blank on it right now. Does anybody know
the demiurge?
The name?
The demiurge.
Demiurge, yes. So the demiurge as the kind of middling level god. And I think it's really interesting that that we never ever ask, when we discuss God, we never really ask whether our God might be the final God, right? Like, because if you take the Christian Judeo story and you say, okay, fine, let's assume that there is that God, but that, how does that in any way answer, whether he is in fact the final God, right? Like, he could totally be a demiurge and still be the God from the traditions. And from that level, it starts to me to seem a lot like the kind of answer in a simulist framework of, like, if we are in a simulation, then our simulator, as Nick Bostrom would say, is, outside of our universe, outside of space and time, created the universe, created us in their image, right? Which totally, so if we are in fact just, a simulation created from our future selves, then that kind of fits all of those things. We would control that universe. We would live outside that universe's space and time, and we would have created that universe in our image. And then you kind of, that fits the mode, the model there. And then it really fits with this idea of, the thing about simulation theory is it doesn't necessarily preclude there from being a higher simulator, right? Because in fact, it almost requires it, that if we are in a simulation, we are not in the first simulation, that we're most likely within simulations nested within simulations within simulations. And so this concept that Platonius puts forth of a demiurge is very interesting, because it most closely fits a simulist worldview from that perspective. And I think that it also allows you to exist fully within the other traditions, because there's no reason to get rid of them, because they can be fully valid within that framework. So that's where I'm at. And I love, hearing a little Platonius reference. But yeah, in terms of,
Bostrom was going to come up eventually.
oh, I mean, how could he not? He's a good one to bat around any day. But listen, I come from a fairly strict Jewish background. I actually went to yeshiva in Miami Beach, like black hat yeshiva, for a little while for high school. And Kabbalah is really interesting. It's interesting that it's been packaged for a modern audience and for a less strict audience. But this is I do believe you needed 40 years of hardcore practice in the highest levels of orthodoxy before you were able to really step into those areas of learning.
Well, a lot of Orthodox Jews are against people, like especially non-Jews, learning about the Kabbalah. So it's an interesting thing where you do have certain renegades, like the Bergs, Rav Berg, you have Michael Lightman on the other side, and both of them don't like each other. But you have these renegades who come out and distribute Kabbalah to the masses, while the more traditional Orthodox rabbis say, no, this knowledge is not allowed to be broadcast widely. So I'm curious, Zach, what do you think about this situation?
I mean, I think that, it's kind of like
the rabbis
let this information out.
Yeah.
And the truth is like, they could tell you all sorts of things about how, that level of nuclear physics work and, and how to build a bomb. But the truth is that you do need quite an education to even fully process that information. So it wouldn't even really matter if it was fully available. Like, they printed the blueprints for a bomb. Like, if they gave you the blueprints for a nuclear bomb, Lev, could you build a nuclear bomb? Like, potentially not. I'm not 100% sure what your mastery of physics is.
Just
to interject
getting the uranium.
There's a pretty common meme in free energy research of people who are able to create their own miniaturized reactors. I think the ability to harness that
Oh,
level of
yeah.
physics
14-year-old
is
kid
much
did it.
more.
Yeah, I was just about to
That's-
say.
That's
boy.
exactly what I'm saying. It's much more within our reach than we might imagine.
Yes.
I know
I
that's
think they
not the
call them
point of
But
the
that's his
illustration you're making.
SMNR, small modular nuclear reactors. I'm really into it.
Yeah, I don't want to tear your analogy apart there, but I did want to interject and say that's not as far fetched as a lot of people think it is.
No, it's well, hold on, but it's not. By the way, it's not, and neither. I think that it fits the the metaphor even more because a lot of people were not only just given the book. It's not like they were just given the Zohar. They were given a way to understand it. So on one hand, I'm fully into this democratization of knowledge, and I imagine that mystic element is deep. But it's the truth is it takes someone with a higher level of understanding. Even the small modular nuclear reactors would require a higher level of understanding than a layman. And so again, even an SMNR, you could explain it to somebody, you could show them, you could give them the thing, but even the simplest DIY stuff is out of the realm for a lot of people. So I think it's whatever you bring to it, and that includes Kabbalah. That that's the kind of effect it can have on you and on the
maybe
world.
I could push
so
back a
I'm
little
for
bit.
it. I'm for it.
Gio?
Well, let me just push back because Super Iron Bob, friend of the show, said in the chat, knowledge can harm you. Not all knowledge makes you better. Knowledge made me dumber. Chug says it's true. I think that the problem is that we have a sort of a setup where we're fetishizing, especially in the information age, where we have this fetishism of knowledge. But I do think that the reason why a lot of these mystery schools placed limits upon knowledge was they realized that a lot of people couldn't, I hate to say it, but couldn't handle it. Like even the fact that we're talking about simulation theory creating another layer of what would you say, an ersatz metaphysical structure upon the real. To me, it's this is time to go Uncle Ted Kaczynski, totally smash the machines, Butlerian jihad mode. That's so terrifying to me. I don't know how anyone else feels.
Well, it
Jill,
doesn't
isn't that
help
what I said
people that
yesterday? That people,
Yeah.
you can't give everything to everybody because there are normal people who could never understand any of this. They've never thought outside of what they've been told, or even just outside of themselves and their day-to-day experience.
Well, not even just the analogy about
About
making
the
the
meaning of the universe in such broad terms that people, it's impossible. I mean, it's not impossible, but you have to get there on your own. You can't be mass informed into being a more knowledgeable person. And I think that's one of the problems with the way education works, is that they just force all this education down your brain, and somehow you're supposed to know all of this stuff so that you can do what with it. I mean, there's not even a purpose to it, just to say you have it, basically, and others who don't have it don't have it. I mean, it's not even necessarily useful.
Well, by the way, it's funny that you say that. It's funny that you say that because the truth is education, especially higher education, was essentially, and for a very long time, just a wealthy man's sport, right? You weren't really supposed to be an education.
Tell me about
you weren't supposed to be get an education so you could do
it's
something.
a waste of time.
Yeah.
I feel like between the two sort of perspectives here, which I mostly agree with on sort of both parts, but I think there's a certain self-selection of people who will find the material anyway. So yes, the material has been democratized. Yes, it's out there. Yes, anyone could access it. But quite frankly, the number of people who do is smaller and smaller. And even to sort of access the material and start to digest it doesn't necessarily mean that you achieve, quote unquote, gnosis. I certainly have not. So it's yes, there are valid concerns on both parts, but I really don't think it's a huge existential issue with knowledge and information and transcendence. I think people who will have the inclination to find it will always find it and have always found it, and those who do not simply do not.
Well, what do you guys all think of? What do you guys all? Because we have people here who are, either academics or academic adjacent. I was sort of in, well, when I was, doing my master's programs. But what do you guys think of the idea of like open source academic knowledge? Like, do you think the publishing industry in academia is like a total fraud, in that it's a tragedy that like academics work so hard on one paper, but like maybe only like 2 reviewers in them and like their professor, their supervisor sees it? Like, do you think that maybe this, like, even just making something as simple as JSTOR available publicly, like, what do you guys think about that? Like, do you think there's a monopoly on publishing? Or I know it's totally against the topic of
it's good to know the history of how the stuff came into being. So originally the idea of having peer-reviewed papers and published papers was that there would be centralized locations where experts could sort of commingle and share their information, and not be sort of influenced by the huddled masses, so to speak. But ever since the advent of modern technology, and specifically the internet, they went from being a centralized hub of information to being a compartment that hides the information. So basically, I think they're sort of, their problem is their business model, is that they were born from the concept of, fees and management and submission, the things that you need to run a journal.
Like record companies almost.
Basically like record companies. But the same problem with record companies is that you realize that, pretty much anybody can sing. The value of the peer review research is going down to basically zero, and yet you still charge $30 for an article or $12 for an article.
I'd like to sort of push back on that a little bit, because you do have a lot of academic journals. The actual journal themselves was not necessarily a fee-based journal. Like, for example, my specialization is African American Studies, and you have people who, like the African American Journal, whatever, it's changed names all these times. But when it was started in 1900, it was really just a way of, putting together the information so that it could actually somehow be pushed out to people. So you have the academic scholars
that you still have some curating. Yeah, that there's still people like validating it and reviewing it.
And also so that
I'm speaking more of the industry, not so individual journals and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, the for-profit industry
came in, and I think the industries came in and do what the industries always do, is especially with education, the point of education being to have an educated class and an uneducated class. It's not even that their model is.
So I don't have a master's or a PhD.
Difficult to know how to
but I get the impression.
Wait. So sorry, Hodep Sophia.
I mean, I'm working on my PhD, so this is just like for my own personal sort of experience, not
Yeah, Sophia, you might be able to confirm this for me, because I get the impression that I've had people tell me if you want to study a particular thing or go into a particular route, you need the funding, and the funding basically decides what you're going to study and what you're going to do. So yes. For instance, my friend did a master's in architecture, and his architectural plan was basically to make a commune of sorts that was completely self-sufficient and self-sustainable.
Sweet.
And he basically made it in the model of a fascist state. And his tutor said to him, at the beginning of the course, said to him, "Oh, you probably don't even know how open we are to like new ideas." And so he took with that and ran with it, and then created this commune that was based on like structure and hierarchy to its most pure form. And he eventually literally got into a fist fight with his tutor, because his tutor just couldn't deal with the fact that he was creating a fascist state, but then doing it in a way that was still morally.
That doesn't sound too different. That's not too different from my experience with residency, where I had to be in a class with a bunch of teachers getting their PhDs, and they showed this video on that was just completely insane, like saying that Che Guevara was like a great person. And I was just like, Venezuela like the people lost 22 pounds last year. What is wrong with you people? And literally the entire class jumped down my throat. I go to school online because I wanted to avoid this, but the doctorate, they just make you go into these residencies. And this is literally what happens. I mean, and I think that the whole gatekeeping process in general,
The gatekeeping process, that's the great way to describe it.
Yeah.
So with the professional journals,
a wide range of debate.
So especially in the
parameters
mature
outside of that.
sorry.
Wait, Disco and then Haka says, yes.
Sorry, no, I'd actually just finished. What I was saying is within the parameters that they define, they allow like a lively and wide range of debate. But as long as providing you don't step outside of
exactly.
parameters,
well,
and
Zach,
then you're verboten and you're cancelled.
Well, before I forget, Zach, you are in academia, right? You are a professor at the New School.
I haven't taught classes in a couple of semesters, but I'm still on the faculty at the New School at Parsons in the business program. And yeah, I will say I have no love for the system as it stands. I think that they are, it's speaking of fascist states.
And that's someone coming from the New School, which was originally
which was literally created to
break.
It's not that. It's not quite that. I mean, listen, they do. What was that?
I said I'm getting my
doctorate in business.
Oh, is that?
I can only imagine. That's what my doctorate is in business. So I can only imagine what it's like to have to teach these people who never ran a business in their life, yet these are the ones who are going to be making the policy. And it is the most frustrating thing for me just as a student. Like, they want you to do all of this stuff, and that's not how any of this works. Like, if I contract, I'm going to set up a meeting with the old people. I'm going to go in there and look cute, and I'm going to tell them, look, I need, $30 your budget, just like it's this, you need a hose and a blah, blah. No, don't talk to the old people and you smile and you know what you're talking about.
By the way, Sophia, your signal sometimes goes off. I don't know if there's a way to switch to Wi-Fi or mobile or anything of that matter, because sometimes there are just like these gaps, and then the conversation continues. So, yeah, there's something that... can you hear me?
I'll try logging out again, because that's what happened earlier.
All right, cool. Yes, because I did want to make sure that everybody is able to hear you. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of an old hat thing already, how people are dissatisfied with the state of academia. I think after COVID, I hope that people are going to look into alternatives for most things where there could be like a master-disciple approach to education on the whole. So
I think a good way to approach this is basically if you're not getting anything from a particular realm of academia, it's not so much fighting it because it's wasted energy. The best practice is ignore it and focus on people that are actually working towards something unique.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Why would you spend 4 years trying to get your article published on Nature when you could just go into the garage and build something in a few months and prove your concept? It's like there was a joke that back in the Wright brothers era, when they were experimenting with the first airplanes, is that the academia at the time was harshly arguing whether or not heavier than air flight was even possible. And the consensus at the time was that it wasn't possible. You had balloons were the only way to do it. So after the first Wright brothers flight, a lot of newspapers refused to publish the article on the first Wright brothers flight because they knew it was a hoax. Because heavier than air flight was impossible. It wasn't until like the third or fourth or fifth flight that they realized, oh yeah, there actually is something to this. So that's how they solved the heavier than air flight problem, is by building a plane. If you want to solve the free energy problem, you build a reactor. If you want to solve the anti-gravity problem, you build a UFO.
Easier said than done. Not because it's hard to do, probably, but
well, if somebody did it, if it's been done, it can be redone. If it can be discovered, it can be rediscovered.
If it's discovered...
Tesla did this before we had any modern technology. He had wires, coils, capacitors. There was no modern equipment. There was no modern theory. There was no simulations. He did it from basically art.
Meditation.
So
Potentially, there was
Meditation.
always a simulation,
At
but
the
that's
vision.
yeah.
By the way, for those who don't know, in Tesla's biography written by a friend of his, he talked about how when Nikola Tesla breathed in, it was like he had a Kundalini type experience. So when he breathed in, he felt the snake-like energy going up and down his spine, and he always received these various visions of what exactly he's going to build. And this is, I think, like the antidote to a lot of the fake news that's going on today, is to be able to go into your third eye and go into that realm and see what you can come up with there, because I just don't think people ever practice that. And if they don't practice that, then of course they're not going to know what it would be like to go into an astral realm and to communicate with people in that astral realm, and then to like exchange emails and to contact them over the regular old internet after the fact. Like
I think
yeah,
there is one lesson to be learned from Tesla, though, was that being an artist of that nature is he didn't write a lot of technical books and he didn't pass on a lot of his knowledge. So a lot of the work nearly died with him because he didn't have the ability to transcribe into English that people
He
could
was just
follow
a
in his
savant.
footsteps.
He was a savant. You know, he was just
yeah.
But
He
there was
married-
other inventors that, you know, that were of the same scale, you know, Charles Steinmetz or, you know, J.J. Thomson, Oliver Heaviside, people that actually did write the books. And the reason we use a lot of their formulas today, because they were able to lay that groundwork. Tesla, you know, built Wardenclyffe, but unfortunately he didn't leave the formulas or principles. So, you know, we had to do it from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
Did he not leave them? Wasn't his apartment raided after his death?
Yes, the FBI did raid his apartment, and
Didn't
13
they give
trunks
him
of
to,
notes were lost. But
yeah,
but the
Donald
point
Trump?
is that even before he died, he wasn't very good at. He could have published books before that gave a little more detail. You know what I mean?
You're absolutely right. Yeah, he's a very to himself sort of person, I believe.
That's art. I think artists are like that because you can see my desk. I have about 12 projects.
It's the gift
going
and the
on,
curse.
and I could not explain any of this to anyone.
Oh, you're still going out, Hotep Sophia.
But
I don't know
some of
what's
those things are like never ending and kind of still messing up.
Yeah,
Darn
it's
it.
still
Let me-
messing
let
up.
me
I
log
don't
off
know what's going on.
To just piggyback on that, I think the engineer or the inventor is the furthest sort of step of the hermit, more than the artist and the writer. They have to close themselves off almost entirely, it seems, from the rest of the world, and destroy their personal relationships. But they don't really, they're not as able to put the time into the personal relationships because they're creating something totally original, whereas a lot of art is predicated on art that has come before, perhaps.
No, but the same thing happens in engineering. A lot of concepts survive. A lot of techniques,
No, that's
concepts,
true, yeah.
principles. So, yeah.
So Buff said, send Kundalini to Trump. Yeah, we didn't even talk about this. I mean, this is just something that happened in the morning. I looked at my phone. I was like, what the fuck is going on? So
Can I tell you my quick theory?
Yes, go on.
So Trump has tested positive. He's going to be absolutely fine. And, you know, the left and the media particularly, they love to say how Trump is such an unhealthy man. And so when he comes out, this is just, my prediction, when he comes out fine and is like absolutely okay, the left and the media are going to, the establishment media are either going to have to admit Trump is a virile and healthy man who's 75 years old or whatever, or they're going to have to admit that the coronavirus is not as dangerous as we've all been led to believe. So
wait. By the way, before that, I think, Rastan, you got to go soon. I didn't want to have you go before saying the thing about education you wanted to mention.
Oh, no, not at all. I think there's nothing wrong with homeschooling. I think nowadays, if it's almost better because children can pursue their passions as where they're being kind of molded by our government to be something that they want them to be. I mean, pretty soon they're just gonna have a list of free scholarship ideas that you get, and that's not communism, right? Because if you choose anything outside of that list, you might have to pay. Fully automated luxury communism. That's the way I see it going. And that's what we're seeing with communitarianism or Common Core curriculum, in my opinion. But I want to say it's always an honor to talk to all you guys and have you all on here and be able to have conversations. And Modern Hermit, you're the one guy from Kenosha?
No, that's me, and I would love to get networked with you.
Yeah, man, let's get
At Dogman Respecter on Twitter.
They sound similar, right? Like you guys have similar accents going on.
Hey, you know the Fonz there. He's from Wisconsin. So, yeah, no, love to get in touch with you. You should meet T. Krulos. He does the Paranormal Milwaukee conference every year. He'd be a good person to talk to and does a wonderful job there. So, yeah, sorry you didn't get the chance to talk to Helios a little bit more. Would have been interesting.
It's not
Maybe
the last time. He's going to be coming back here. You should come to his podcast too.
Yeah, I'll have him on the Rundown
Sunblind.
Live.
Guys, subscribe to Sunblind. And also, where could they find you, Kristan? At Kristanti Harris, that's your Twitter account. I have it right here in Zoom. But also, what should people look for? I'm going to link it in...
Just search the Rundown Live. It's pretty much everywhere right now. It's viral. So check out the Rundown Live. That's my talk radio show, my citizen journalism, and everything else.
How many views did your Kenosha videos get?
I don't even want to know. I don't even know anymore. It was up last I checked, is almost near 45 million. But all
Man.
and yeah, just crazy.
Yeah.
And
You guys must have seen his footage. His footage was on CNN, Fox, everywhere of the Kenosha. Oh, wow. We got a lemon from Amazing Music. Amazing Music, thank you very much for that lemon. I don't know how lemons work yet on D-Live, but I'm so thankful for our very first D-Live contribution.
Lemonade with that digital lemonade. Is that like a token? Lemon token. And then when you
Exactly.
bake it, it's like lemonade.
If
you
we
know?
get enough of these lemons together, we'll have a lemon party.
Yes.
Lemons are worthless unless you get a whole bunch of them. So
Denied.
Hopefully we'll be on the level of Ethan, Ralph, and Daddy Jim on D Live, where we could just read super chats for 3 hours straight. So that'll be fun.
I'm waiting for
It
library
was
to
really
offer
fun. I
live
actually
streaming.
also have to go. I have to grab dinner, but
Well, Zach,
it
thank
was
you
always
so
a
much for
pleasure.
coming in, man. This was great.
Thank you.
as
Always a pleasure to talk to you, Zach.
Take care. And this is the Rundown Live link right over here. Guys, go and subscribe to the Rundown Live right now, right after you subscribe to Break the Rules, both on YouTube and on D-Live. We want to grow this D-Live thing, so just in case something happens to YouTube, we will have a home in D-Live. It is our Exodus ship, and we're going to go into way more platforms. I want to go to TikTok. I want to go to Instagram, live stream, see if we can hook that up in some way. So this is what we're doing. We're getting out there. We're making the best programming that I have ever seen in a long time. I don't even listen to podcasts anymore. Like, the only thing I'd listen to is, like, the Modern Hermeticist. I'd listen to you. I'd listen to Helios. I'd listen to the Rundown Live. And that's pretty much it. So this is where it's at. This is where all the concentration of internet energy is going into, and I am incredibly blessed to have everybody here joining me on the stream. And subscribe, and also go to patreon.com/breaktherules with a 3 limited time offer. It's going to end this month. $20 prints $20 patrons get exquisite prints from the great man himself, Giovanni Panicietti. Take care, Kristan. And I want to get back to something we were talking earlier with the Modern Hermeticist about, which is the nature of the astral realm and also the nature of these gods. So what I've always been curious about is I've been asking people who take DMT trips, who go into these various realms, if they can describe the actual, let's say, texture or cells or like the minutia of what exactly is making up these images, because we are seeing things through our eyes. And I've always been fascinated, like when you're seeing things through, I guess, your third eye in this case, in this astral realm, what exactly is this process of visualizing? Is it like visualizing through the two eyes? Or if it's not, how is it different? Are you able to have a whole other field of view that you can't even imagine because you only have these two eyes to look out of? And also, if you were to take, let's say, a microscope and apply it to these various creatures you would encounter there, like with us, obviously we have cells, we have atoms, we have all these things inside of us that we're able to perceive through various technological means. But when it comes to that world, how exactly would these creatures function as far as when you get deeper into them? What exactly do they look like? What exactly are they made of? Do some of them also have their own cells? So I've always been meaning to ask this question of psychonauts like yourself, Modern Hermeticist. So let me know what you think.
Well, I think like they're pure geometry in a sense. It's just that they're like a transcendental kind of geometry that is in many types of dimensions at once. It's not just like a 3-dimensional or 4-dimensional thing. It's more dimensions and dimensions unfolding on dimensions. It's and then there are intelligences laced into those shapes, those hypergeometrical objects. And so I think that it's not really something that you would think of in terms of like conventionally meeting an entity or meeting a being. It's far stranger and far more difficult to language.
Would there be a way for you to feel this too? Like we're able to feel things with our hands. Would you be able to feel these entities? Could you have sex with these entities?
Not as far as I know, not in my experience.
Immediately, like that's where it goes right away.
Man.
That's the
So
most
I've
important
heard
question.
shape. Would you describe as we'll say curved or soft curve or jagged edge?
That's the thing. It's like it's constantly moving really fast, and it's everything, and like it's all of those things and none of those things.
Okay.
And
Is it
what
more
method
similar
did
to
you
a
use to take
kaleidoscope?
it?
Pardon?
What method did you use to take it?
Pipe.
Gotcha.
We have a comment from Buff, Lev a freak. I mean, if you think back to like Star Trek, you know, where they're going to these planets, meeting these hot green alien babes and having sex with them, I assume there would be some psychonauts out there who would think, you know what, like, what if? You know, maybe she'll give birth to a hyperdimensional Nephilim baby that's going to coexist both in our world and in the astral realm. I mean, I guess that is kind of also like the Jewish mysticism idea behind Lilith, where whenever you ejaculate, like to porn or whatever, it's like this Lilith or this female demon, succubus. It's like the succubus takes it in, and then when you die, you go into a room, or at least this is what Ari Shafir said. So I'm going to take what he says with a grain of kosher salt. But he says that when you go when you go into a room after you die, you get introduced to all these babies that you made through this process of spilling seed and having your
I do have
energy
a
drained.
question too.
Mm-hmm.
Damn, I'm losing my train of thought.
Are you
So
thinking about the succubus?
question is in DM. Yeah, you threw me off with that. For DMT, I guess for people that have the experience, would you describe is your consciousness intact and are you yourself? Do you feel in your right sense of mind, or is there something more disassociative? Say comparing alcohol or weed or some of the other ones where
Yes.
we'll say you feel where
That's
either
the
that
disheartening
capacity
part.
doesn't exist or not.
Yes, and that's the part that's really weird, because it's sort of like, oh, this is like this soul thing that people are talking about, where you have this spark of consciousness that is kind of this core self, and it is experiencing the
But
theater.
you feel yourself as in the sense that you're standing and walking, not in a physical sense, but you feel perfectly conscious, like you were going to work or commuting to work, right?
More like
That it's
you're a
you.
spark.
Okay.
So you're a spark that's like, in a way, disembodied or participating in this whole scaffolding of beings.
Would you
Like,
say that you
these
have?
could be
Would you say that
past
you have
lives or something.
thoughts? Would you say that you have discrete thoughts in your
Yes.
mind, or is everything sort of flowing?
Yeah, there's like emotions for sure. There's like terror at first, because you feel like your heart's going to explode when you hold your breath and you're really holding it in for as long as you can, and then you sort of fall into it, and there's this fear where it's like, oh, I did it, I died, like I really messed
The
up.
petite monde.
Yeah.
When you say
and
you're
then-
holding your breath, that means you stopped breathing, or at least you perceive yourself as having stopped breathing.
Well, it's because you're holding in the stuff. Like,
Oh, right,
if you don't
yes.
hold it in a long time, you don't get off. So you've got to really get that burning orange crap in you and keep it in you for as long as possible.
Wow. I mean,
Sorry, the cats are-
the reason why I caught on to what you said about the breathing is because, for those of you who are aware, I do a lot of these breathing exercises, the pranayama, and as a result, I do get to a point where I'm able to slow my heart down and see a lot of these blue and purple vortexes. That is a beautiful cat, by the way. Let me make... Okay, guys, subscribe
My
for
neighbor
this.
had a cat like that.
For this amazing pussy that's in front of us right now. What a beautiful, what a beautiful cat. What is her,
that a
name? Or
Himalayan
his?
tonight, man.
Or his? He or
He's
she?
a Persian. His name's Paco.
Paco. Beautiful Paco.
Is that a Himalayan or?
Hey, do you guys know about Conor Murphy?
Oh, a Persian, yeah.
Sorry to change the subject, but you guys know about Conor Murphy?
I've heard the name, but
So he was this fitness YouTuber who basically lived a life of just walking down Venice Beach, interviewing babes with his top off, and then just having sex with them, essentially.
Oh, I've heard of this guy. Yeah.
And then he took DMT and had a complete meltdown.
That's the Joe
and he
Rogan
filmed it.
Fitbro pipeline, right?
Yeah, exactly. And he filmed it all. He filmed his entire meltdown. It was super intense. And he basically realized some very deep things about his family and how his entire life was a superficial lie. And then he fasted for 40 days. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. Then he fasted for 40 days straight because I assume he felt like he might have been Jesus. But I think his story is quite a good example of why you don't just do the Joe Rogan and take DMT when you feel like it. There has to be sort of an incredible amount of thought and perhaps even ritual that you've partaken in. I've never taken it, so I don't know. But
I do have one more question too, I guess. It would be in terms of consciousness, we're sort of trying to figure out what the experience is. And I guess the question is, are your thoughts in control in the sense of you're conscious and waking or talking on our chat right now, or would you say that the experience like things happening to you and more of a participant?
It's like it takes you. Like it's like being swallowed by a giant fish or something. It's right. It's more like it takes you than you take it.
As far as the visions, though, I'm still not exactly understanding of what it would be like to see things without the eyes. Because you could kind of, imagine, okay, here's the flap of skin that prevents my eye from seeing anything beyond this particular area. But without that...
You can use your imagination. You close your eyes and imagine
sure,
a
all
box.
the time.
Imagine a square or something like that.
Yeah.
I would imagine the experience is something akin to that.
But I still see a periphery,
You
though.
may not see...
That's the thing. I still see a periphery of white light that's rotating around when I close my eyes. Now, I don't know if other people have that same periphery, but there is something that's holding me in, like, I would describe it like this very intense psychedelic experience that I had in the Russian-Turkish baths in New York City. Highly recommend you guys go there after COVID. Anyway, this Hasidic Jew, he gave me this kosher joint, and afterwards I had this experience of seeing, like, our entire visions is like a dome, and it's this dome that's enclosed, and how this dome is also like, it's not as perfect as we think it is. Like, you start to notice that it's kind of digital. You notice that it's all made up of these pixels, but your brain fills in the information so that you don't see the pixels. Yeah, you know where I'm going with this. And
I had the same experience with psilocybin. It was like a dome of interconnected fluorescent lighted dancing Buddhas. At one frame, and the other frame was the gas mask man from the Denver mural. I swear to God, I saw the end of the world. What mean?
Oh God!
So,
what mean?
Gas mask man. I'm gonna put him in the chat here. But this dome is an interesting thing. It does kind of remind me, by the way, Geo. It reminds me of those biblical illustrations of the world as a dome.
Is it the as above, so below of the firmament?
Well, who did the I'm forgetting which Renaissance painter. I think it was that that did like the different rings of heaven, the illustration. Was it Vasari or I forget. But basically it was like that was the it must have been a Raphael piece where it was like the concave angels around the different circles. Yeah. Which is another thing too about the Renaissance. A lot of people believe that there was like the birth of, the usual story of like the birth of humanism and the revival of the Greeks and the Romans, but there was still quite a bit of, at least in the art world, there was still quite a bit of like mystical religiosity. Even Botticelli was like taken in some of his later works by like very fanatical priest class, and he did quite a few stunning religious works. But there was still quite, well, for example, how Vasari basically like cut out the Germanic and Flemish painters as like not real Renaissance. Not that I mind, because I am also Italian. So if you're not Italian, you ain't right. So no, but then he just totally dicked over Van Eyck and all of those in that school.
Oh wait,
But,
which
yeah.
was the painting you were talking about earlier?
I believe it was a Raphael painting of like all the angels and all of their stations in heaven, in like sort of the multiple layers of spheres, like dancing upon each other.
Let me see if I could find it. I mean, as far as those spheres of heaven, again, like with something like I don't know, like Hinduism, the way that they also depict all these chakras
The
and
Buddha
patterns.
lands, yeah.
Like it all seems to talk about the same thing. So I can't really separate one from the other as far as this architecture of consciousness. And I also imagine that there would be other planets around us, like the Earth. By the way, like the Earth, it's in the galaxy, and the galaxy is also in a way a representation of these spheres, if you will. Like there's this center of light, like this black hole, and then around it are all these things that are swirling around. We're not in the best place. Like the Earth is not located towards the center. It's located a little bit off.
We would be like the throat chakra, or maybe the solar plexus.
Yeah, more solar plexus than throat, because we're not that close to the center. But I would imagine that, like the Hindus talk about the lokas that you could be reborn in, the Mormons also talk about this, that we would be able to, let's say, do a hop, skip, and a jump from the planet Earth to planets that are closer to the center of the galaxy, where things are, let's say, a little bit less hectic. This would be Tupac's Thug Mansion. Thug's Mansion would be somewhere closer to the center, where we could just like hang out and chill and relax, chilling out, maxing, relaxing, all cool, and all shooting some b-ball. How does that go? God, I messed that up. I was so close to getting the Fresh Prince-ing right, and I messed it up towards the end. But anyway, I am not finding this painting yet. But
seven chakras, 7 celestial bodies.
That's right.
There is a correlation.
Yes, and we had some Mormons on. We have some Desnats on in an earlier episode where they were talking with a Mormon transhumanist, and I believe one of them was leaning on. I mean, he still said that they would still all have to be Mormon, but he was still leaning on how people can live in these different planets and different countries and have all these esoteric faiths that they've inherited, that actually it's all Mormonism, but like they're still going to accept it. So, everybody kind of wants to feel like their thing is the closest, if not the correct thing. And I think we're living at a time when the veil's been so pierced open for those who are interested in finding out more that it's very hard to deny all these things are out there. Like ᚱAᛏᚺᚺ, you come from the perspective of being Christian, but you are also into theosophy, into like the Rudolf Steiner. How do he call that? Yes,
anthroposophy. But also, I call myself a Christian esoteric sophist, so that's kind of complicated, but that's where I usually fall. Is it still messing up?
Right now, no.
It's say that again. Christian esoteric.
Yeah, Christian esoteric.
What was the last one?
Christian esoteric sophist. So I more so ascribe to the
it's still messing up. I'm so sorry, ᚱAᛏᚺᚺ.
I guess describe it. Wisdom.
No, we did hear the word wisdom. We did hear the word wisdom. So
Wisdom,
Sophia, the love of
Sophia
wisdom.
is
Yes.
wisdom. Yes, the
Yeah.
wisdom. Yes, that's the general. But I do believe in the Bible because I don't want to discount that. And then esoteric means I just throw in whatever else I believe, and it also keeps people from saying, "Oh, well, you like the tarot cards and you like you follow astronomy or astrology and you follow this sacred geometry. How can you actually follow all this stuff?" And I'm like, easy. It's all perspective. So if I'm talking to people who understand sophistry or ever, then I could talk about that. If we're talking related to Christianity, I think people put themselves in boxes.
Yeah, they need the structure. But
People
the
academic thing. Just keep adding words onto the end.
yeah, I mean, it might be sinful to say, but was Jesus an alchemist?
I'll say there's contradictions in almost any theology. At some
Yeah,
level.
would you think that Jesus is practiced alchemy?
Well, water into wine is no. I mean,
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
yeah.
obviously, if something's there, you don't do that in a. Yeah, there's elements. I mean, but then once you learn how to make wine, you really do know that it's literally water and yeast and sugar and turning it into wine. It's not like a big, thing. Like even if you make, like I make hard cider and hard lemonade, and literally it's water,
Right.
flavor, yeast, and
Yeah, but
sugar,
I
and
don't
you're
know,
turning
guys,
it
that's-
into something.
Yeah.
It's kind
Geo.
of sus because it's considered a form of divination, therefore it's heretical. So
Yeah, that's what I was trying to
I don't want to
ask.
go
Yeah, is it
there.
heretical?
Depending on how
Is it-
heretical you want to get, one could sort of think of the crucifixion of Christ as an act of alchemy, wherein he transmutes the sin of all humanity that he's
Of the
dying
world.
for into that sort of eternal life and grace. That is that act of the complete act of all four stages of alchemy, the Negredo all the way through to the Albedo, I believe. So yeah, I think it's a okay metaphor. I don't know that I would necessarily base any doctrine on it, or if that
But as a
interpretation is even
metaphor,
Different ways
yeah.
to frame the same thing. I think any complex religion, anything that has enough information like that, there's different ways you can view it.
Well, as
and
in
then after Christ completed the ultimate alchemy, therefore you don't need to do it. So stay away. Don't worry about it. Do not research.
But also as an as above so below type of thing, when you have the image of Christ being like sacrificed at Golgotha, the head, in a way that is like the very center, like the third eye, and then you have the two thieves. Those are like the two eyes, the eyes that we use to see this world. And I wonder if
Also
there
the
is
two
something there too.
hemispheres of the brain.
Say that again?
I would say also the two hemispheres of the brain.
Yes, that's right, the two hemispheres of the brain. And even like the sign of the cross, like that is like we are basically going this is kind of like the human body when you make the sign of the cross.
Yep.
I mean, it is the cross is the human body, so is the five-pointed star, and both of these things can be seen during these meditation practices. Now, you don't really see a cross like with the tall, end. You don't see that kind of cross. You see just like two lines like that, but it's again something in the center, something out of which everything else comes out of. So it is such a primordial symbol that people can see, but so is that five-pointed star, which is like a human being just with their arms spread. And this is something that I saw this a couple of times, and it's called the spiritual eye. Obviously that's not like the official name for it. I believe it's also called the Katusha Chaitanya, I believe, and spiritual eye, it's like a five-pointed star around this blue light, around this yellow light, kind of like a donut shape. So I'm going to post a picture of it right now for those who know what I'm talking about, like a modern hermeticist. Do you know? I'm gonna show you the picture right now, but do you know where I'm getting at here with this spiritual eye that I'm talking about? Here's the picture of it right here.
The Anya chakra or Ajna chakra.
So I still don't really know what exactly this yellow is. From what I assume, it's like when you have a burst of energy that comes out, the shock wave of that energy ends up resting in this circle, in this donut that's around it. And what I also get in my own meditation practices goes even further than that, where I would also have little white lights that circle around the center. And those white lights, they can turn into a triangle, they can turn into a DNA helix, they can turn into, different kinds of shapes. And in my dreams, a lot of letters that I have no idea what they mean also end up coming out of it. And like I said in the previous episode, I believe that our faces are also a representation of this symbology in action, where if you look at the line of the nose, this is a triangle over here. There's another triangle over here. So bursting forth are these shapes that then make up our faces. And we are, in a way, these living symbols that can communicate. And you could see, I think, a person's soul in their face, in how they speak to you, in all these little telltale signs. So there is something, I think, very special about the human face, which is able to convey something that is, I don't even know, it's just such a transcendental experience, even to look at all of your faces and just to see these souls that are communicating to me right now. So thank you guys very much for being here for that. Even the avatars, I'm still able to get from the avatars, even though Disco Orpheus, your face is darkened. I see the light behind you. And Hermes, you're wearing that very lovely looking hat. And Haka says, you are also the same example. I mean, look at that spiritual eye and look at the symbol you have over here. It's the exact same thing going on, I think. Like, could you tell us a little bit about what exactly this thing is?
Oh, that's just an arc reactor from Iron Man. I figured the energy thing would be an appropriate analogy
There
for,
we go.
For my expertise.
But I think that they're using the same idea as this bursting forth of energy that conveys not just power, but also that conveys meaning in how that energy is manifest. So we are all stars.
It is
in that
strange
sense.
that the same principles seem to apply at every different level. Is that the principles of synchronicity, harmony, disharmony, the wave functions and quantum mechanics stuff applies not only on a technical level, but also on a metaphysical level. Is that when we take actions that harmonize with the universe, then they ripple forward and spread out. So the little action that we have that's positive, lasts into perpetuity, lasts tens of years or thousands of years, depending on our action. Whereas when we do things that are disharmonious, when we make evil actions or kill or do something nefarious, those actions are happen and then they're snuffed out. They're lost to history. We intentionally forget the bad things like that.
Well,
someone might do something big and bad enough to persist throughout history, say the Hitler or whatever. But the point is that bad things generally don't persist. They're annihilated.
Asymmetrical, and so disjointed, and they don't reverberate. Like the truth emanates throughout everything, and so the truth is the same in the most minuscule example as it is in the macro. And
it's crazy that follows through on even the electrical level. The same principles apply.
But I don't know. I think that nowadays, usually you're inclined to say yes, but because we live in the great age of inversion, we live in the Kali Yuga. I think the opposite is true, that the bad things persist, but rather, So
I think there are two systems.
Not without the effort. I mean, the great efforts have been done to maintain this inversion. Otherwise, we would probably revert to the norm.
There's a natural divine system, and then an artificial simulacra that is superimposed on top of it.
But see, this is, I think, what we were debating the other episode, the libertarianism episode. Now I remember. I think that it's true that a great deal of a lot of the inversion that's happening now, a lot of it, there's a monumental amount of lengths to prop up this system that is totally what the perennialists call counter initiation. And a lot of that, I think, is predicated on like being able to destroy people's inherent factor of like gut impulse and
Intuition.
intuitive knowing, and our gut response of disgust. A lot of that, I think, that is really the key to all of that. Like a lot of people, a lot of reactionaries, they sort of, when you have your pet theories of like why the modern world is the way it is it the Masons? Is it the J's, the N's, the T's? Who knows, right? Is it the reptilians? A lot of that, I think, is the linchpin of it to me. The linchpin of all great inversions is this destruction of the intuitive aspect of humanity, and and that really is what is severing us from history and from tradition. And without sort of our sense of intuition, that is what is going to be the catalyst for ahistoric man, for year zero, for total nightmare system where there will be total forgetting, and not even in the romantic Nietzschean sense of the way the child starts anew. What their version of the new is the sort of what did Alex Jones, he had this great quote one time. This was like way back in 2011. He said, he's like, they're gonna show you a Hellraiser hell. They're going to show you their paradise, the black star, the black sunshine in their eyes. And it's like,
but Joe,
can I add on to that quickly about intuition?
Sure.
I think that goes hand in hand with the destruction of our guts.
Oh, through all the
processed food literally,
the gut flora.
Dietary.
Yes, exactly. So our gut flora and fauna have been destroyed to the extent that we don't have, well, not we, but many people don't have any intuition because what they've consumed has created giant parasites in their guts that are basically driving their intentions and their thought processes. We know this, like the amount of the gut-brain axis and the amount of neurons that are sort of like in the gut. I just don't think it's a coincidence.
Well, there is a link from posturalbodybuilding.com that I think is exactly related to what you're talking about. Here, I'm posting it. So I don't know if you were the one who...
drink kefir with your eggs in the morning.
I don't know.
Gains, germs, and steel. Gains, germs, and steel. What a title.
So I don't know if you guys know this guy, Real Jaw Bra, but I found this on Twitter. I assume in the similar circles that you're in, Disco. So I don't know
we need Soul Bra to come on.
Oh, definitely.
Here and tell us
yes, we got to do a vitalism stream coming up soon.
I tell you, you need there are two of them. They kind of come in tandem. They're both nutritionists and microbiologists. I think Grimm's Hood and CK Eternity. They're like
I've heard of that guy.
The treasure trove of nutrition and gut biome information. Also, Martin Cabello. Have you ever seen his videos before?
Martin Cabello is the third, yes.
I'm trying to get this guy on. I'm always messaging him on Twitter. Not messaging, but like replying to his posts asking, please come on the BTR stream. I really want him to come on.
He's more active on Instagram.
He would be fantastic.
I would love to have him on. I still don't, like, there's a picture of him with, he says that he's on DMT, he do be tripping, and he swallowed some kind of a pink pill, so I'm not really sure what's going on there. I'm going to post it in the Discord.
I think it's interesting, though, how throughout history, a lot of, like, the great men of history have fought through particularly problems with their guts and with their intestines. For example... Oh my God, he's gonna trip balls. For example, like Napoleon died of stomach cancer.
Yeah.
Great writers such as Friedrich Nietzsche always had like an illness with his gut. Proust always had some sort of like what do they call it? Some sort of like cystic condition like Crohn's. King Alfred had diverticulitis. Throughout history, it seems the great men of history have managed to fight their way through, because having bouts of gut pain.
There was an autistic link to that too, by the way.
Oh yeah,
was that right, autistic kids have it was something about digestive problems. Like it was related to MAOI.
I know Down syndrome kids have a lot of digestive issues. But
The
yeah,
issue,
that's
I believe it was
interesting.
that autist, it couldn't process MAOI properly or something to the effect where DMT builds up in your body and you're essentially tripping 24/7 was the ballpark idea.
Wow.
But it was
Wow.
related to digestive issues.
So autism is the next
Ferdinand
stage of
Magellan?
evolution.
Well,
the,
evolution, but if you can't like function, then not really.
Yeah. The Portuguese explorer Ferdinand Magellan.
Yeah.
He used to take, but he was the opposite. So he used to take, in part of his sort of list of therapeutics, he would take turpentine with him, not like paint store stripper, but or paint stripper from a
No, the real, yeah,
but
from
pine
tree
resin
gum.
essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
And he would take that every trip he would go, because turpentine basically eviscerates the worms inside your gut.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Now, what about something like I have it right here. This is gonna be mirrored
That's like
screen, but
the
this
real.
is
Oh, that's
oregano oil. So, what do you guys think of oregano oil?
They say that gets rid of the parasites in your gut, the bad bacteria.
I don't know anything about that. I know I use black seed oil.
Oh, that's good stuff. I got some in the. I got some here as well. That's supposed to be.
What's the oregano oil for?
Oregano oil, it's also like for some various things having to do with like certain sickness symptoms that one might be feeling in the stomach area. So, there's a lot of good stuff that you can use to rid yourself of a lot of these problems. But ultimately, I wonder how much the mind also plays into it when it comes to placebos and how strong the placebo effect is. Like, I remember one story about someone being able to heal themselves from, like, burns or, like, a massive sunburn through the placebo effect. But, like...
Does it matter? If a placebo effect works, if you take a particular thing and it's a placebo effect and it works on you, does it matter if it's real? It's real for you. So it's fine.
Yes,
so placebo, it doesn't matter.
But I'm interested in the process
if oregano
itself.
oil is a cure-all that makes you healthier, then it does.
Well, yeah,
it's not
both are the
real,
same.
man.
I guess the gut and the brain they fold in on each other eventually in terms of
What are the best probiotics? I mean, I don't want to turn this into a vitalism stream, which we will have coming up soon. But what do you think is the best probiotic you can take? Is it VSL3?
Yogurt.
Like, I'm talking about like these, concentrated, super fucking expensive probiotics.
Yogurt.
Okay, yogurt, but like, what yogurt are we talking about here? Because
Omega
like,
3.
3% white yogurt with nothing in it.
I don't know. I don't take any. There's no probiotics that I particularly take, but just having unpasteurized raw dairy products.
Raw milk.
One would imagine our bodies are built for
I'm too
raw
afraid of raw milk,
product.
though. I don't know. I don't want to get like sick. Or is that just a
You won't
psyop?
get
I don't
sick,
know.
Gio. It doesn't do that. I was raised on raw milk.
But what if I get?
I feel great.
What if I get fucking what's the one up in MH? The one up in St. Jacob's Farm.
Swine flu.
E. coli. That's the one. But that came from the apples because the deer was shitting on the apples and they were picking it up. But no, they say raw milk has evil, scary E. coli.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Classic nutritionist. Then what they're talking about. You've got to trust pseudoscientists on Twitter, brother.
I have to listen to Gym Bros. I can't listen to real nutrition.
Yeah.
You got to go into the dude, trust me angle, and everything is gonna be fine. And also, Buff says kefir self-made. I add I Ruteri, BioGaia. Oh yeah, I heard of BioGaia from something gastro. It's some Swedish company.
Apparently, yeah, that's what Bap said. That the a certain steppe people, I think it was the Mongolians, that all they ate in battle was this like older equivalent of kefir, like straight
It's
up
called
raw milk.
Cosmos.
Yeah, and raspberries.
Nice.
And it would like sustain
I'll be right
them.
back. Hold on. Geo take
boy.
over, and don't forget to subscribe.
Subscribe.
And nobody do anything weird while I'm gone.
Oh boy.
Hey,
Well, I
Gio,
wasn't going to, but-
Have you ever heard of? I think he pronounced his name ᚱΑᛏᛏᚺ. He's famous for eating raw meat particularly, but also high meat. You
Oh
familiar
yeah,
with
that guy. Yeah.
See, I've heard a lot about high meat, and I've imagined all the effects positive are true, but I don't know that I could truly go
Yeah,
there.
it's a scary idea.
What is high meat?
So high meat is fermented meat.
Oh, that shit! Oh, oh,
That seems
God.
more suited for vultures than humans.
Yeah.
Just on the surface.
is a kind word for it. It's just rotten meat in the
It's
jar.
rotted meat.
Purposely rotted meat over like 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah, it's supposed
Oh,
to
and
be
there's
like
the Sam Hyde pick.
the ultimate level of probiotic.
yeah.
I think, yeah, a lot of these
I-
health trends they go
Hmm.
way too far, in my opinion.
I think there's definitely a case.
It's good
to be
somebody's
made-
I mean,
experimenting.
I have no right to talk, obviously, but it's
There's a
just-
case to be made for raw meat, certainly. Like I think there are,
Mm.
there are cultures, Mongolians especially, they eat raw meat a lot, as do Inuits, I think, in Alaska. They just eat raw whale. Yeah, it's the next step in my nutrition journey, I suppose.
I would think one doesn't start with high meat, but they work their way up after having gone through sort
Yeah.
of kefir and
You'll-
yogurt and then to raw meat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you survive that,
If you survive that, you somehow start eating yourself, I think.
it probably
Drink
depends a
your-
lot on
drink
the
your own
person
piss.
too, because there's a pretty big diversity in human body types and phenotypes. Is that certain people just might not be suited for that diet.
Yeah, I
it's
agree.
true.
Oh,
I
I
think
see
no, but
somebody
then-
posted a Sam Hyde picture
That-
while I was
that's
gone.
That's the problem. I feel that people like discount, obviously because it's racist, but people discount the sort of ethnic background of someone's diet. Like there was like those diagrams from colonialists where they like fed African tribesmen in Swaziland like European food, and their like teeth started rotting out.
Yeah.
Stuff
It's
like
same
that.
with the Australian Aborigines. I think they sort of
Yeah,
did
the
an
Aborigines,
overtime
yeah.
comparison.
Or the Pacific Islanders, the Hawaiian, Guam, that they were actually quite thin before industrialization, and then once you add it was basically the Atkins diet. But then once you added a bunch of carbs and grains and stuff like that to the mainstream of the diet, then they start plumping up.
Yeah, look at
Yeah.
Tito.
A lot more
Look at
overweight.
Tito from Rocket Power. That's
Tito.
Yeah.
Surf Shack Tito, you mean? That's Chris Chan
Oh
thought was
God,
black.
yes. By the way, guys, don't fear the kefir. See, I have it right here.
Whoa.
I'm gonna drink some. Look at this.
What's the shelf life on
There
that?
we
by
go.
the
Proving
way?
it.
Oh,
it's
God,
sloppy.
it's so
Oh my God. Is that clumpy? That's
clumpy.
Yeah, some nice clumpy kefir.
Uh,
Cheers, fellas.
Committing a crime in several states right now. Oh, it's
Yeah, Lev, I do coconut kefir, which is pretty different. It's not sort of a thick, succulent dairy product. It tastes kind of like sparkling wine when you drink it.
Nice.
It's just it has this kefir base that you take. I don't know. I nicked it from my mum, so I don't really know how it works. But then you pour coconut water on it, leave it for 3 days. It sort of it does its magic, and then drink that. I would recommend it to listeners if they work out how to do it properly.
Oh, look at this, Jacob Lindsay. Shout out to the great Jacob Lindsay. He was on yesterday's stream, and that was a Libertarian Slugfest, which I really enjoyed. And he says, that's the brand we drink. They sell it at the Russian store. Yeah, so for those who don't know, I am not that far away from a Russian store, thus we have probably the same kefir.
Obviously.
So, yeah, great minds think alike. But I wanted to get back to something real quick. I don't want to dwell on this, but at the same time, this is something that I wanted to ask the modern hermeticist. So the architecture that I displayed here of the third eye, I just want to quickly show it to you. It has these little circles that are around the cross that end up creating various shapes like I described. So I was wondering if this was something similar, like this process was something similar that either you read about or you experienced yourself or other people have talked to you about. Because I don't think I'm the only one who's seeing things in exactly with this kind of architecture and this kind of origination of a lot of these symbols and shapes from these little circles that are around the center.
Well, you're familiar with the flower of life, right?
Of course.
And how, if you look at it, you can have all of these platonic forms and all you even have the Kabbalistic tree of life
Yes.
coming out of it. Like they're all in there. And that's because that is the like scaffolding by which the forms emerge. And so that is like in the architecture of your brain, I suppose. That is how you participate in that realm of forms. And I think that is the Imaginarium, where Nous constructs these, Nous being mind, constructs these like relationships between these points.
Well, it's funny you're saying about
Additionally-
yes.
Lev, I was going to say that additionally, your first illustration is also very similar to that of the concept of the monad, which sits at the very top of the tree of life, just to sort of dovetail that back into what the modern humanist said about it emanating from the flower of life here. So it is again a universal form, as the modern humanist alluded to here shortly.
Well, here is the three-dimensional view, and not to say that this is exactly how it would work, but this is kind of how I imagine it, like this conal structure from which these shapes are emanating. And I'm not really sure if perspective-wise this is exactly how it would flow, but it does seem like how all of perspective that we see, everything does end up going into a point, or rather everything comes out of one point that we're experiencing all our lives. Same thing I think is being applied here. And the construction, I'm also going to try to find this image. I always lose it for some reason, but there was an image that I posted earlier on that was talked about as being the realm called Akasha. And what it is this tower that is basically blue and purple lights, like a multitude of lights that are spinning around the DNA helix. And it does look like a tower, like a dome, like the U.S. Capitol building. But it's very fast. It's incredibly fast. It's like a zoetrope. And when this thing starts to be activated, this is when the third eye area over here starts to vibrate like a motor. So it's like, like that. This area just like vibrates.
Oh man, when you do DMT, you feel this like crackling inside of your head, like crackling plastic, and it seems kind of like that as you're describing it.
I definitely heard about the plastic. I mean, this one is like I don't know if you've ever seen an animated zoetrope machine before. Like when you have multiple shapes of like an animation, like you take a little figure and you put a figure around like in a circle. And the figure, let's say, is running. So one position is this, the other is this, the other is this. And then eventually, like when it starts spinning around and there is a blinking effect, like a strobe light, it looks like all these figures are running in motion all at once. Now, I'm not sure exactly how to bridge that and what I'm experiencing other than saying that this blinking sensation while this animation is going on in my head is something that I've become very aware of. And yeah, let me see if I could find this image because it's got to be somewhere in here. It's definitely worth showing, I think. But beyond that, I also have these images over here which talk about the transformations I can do with the colors. So like I said before, I see a lot of blues, a lot of purples, and I can turn them into very primitive looking letters of the alphabet. So over here, if you look in this window, this is the letter A, this is the letter B, and this is just like a bunch of other just like shapes that just go off on their own. But I am able to, just through sheer thinking about it, move these colors into particular alignments. And I also notice that when I do it, that's when it really starts to charge up. It's almost like it needs a little bit of cranking up through my own mental energy of trying to construct these primitive forms in order to then start to activate the zoetrope and unleash that tower that I'm describing. So I know, like with that tower in particular, I wish I had an image of it right here, like it's somewhere. I posted it above way earlier in the chat, so I'm going to see if I can find it. But have you encountered anything that's similar to this?
Yeah, so I describe it as scaffolding, or like traditionally you get ideas of like the silver cord, right? This like cord that extends out the top of your spine, every spine really, and goes back to the one. And so it's like this picture that you have of these, you know, you have your Imaginarium, but then it recedes into simplicity, into that single point. And that is really moving toward the one. And I think that that is why we feel that we are sort of separate from this thing, and that when we break through these worlds, that we are drawn toward them. We're just like, let's go into that oneness. It like draws you forward. But then there are other entities which presumably are getting in the way, or things that are holding you back. And yeah, there is definitely an ascent metaphor or a hierarchy metaphor, and that's been shared by so many thinkers for so long. I mean, it's no longer a part of the modern post-Enlightenment discourse, at least not on the academic level, right? But that is how a lot of people conceived their cosmos for centuries and centuries, at least in the Latin West.
And I found it, by the way, here it is. So this is what, I mean, this is a very primitive version of it. By no means this is exactly what it looks like. It's much more impressive, but you get the idea. Dome over here, a smaller dome on top of that, and then something that like goes out. I'm not sure where exactly it ends. It's just like this long tower.
Reminds me of that one Alex Gray painting.
Which one?
I think the one he did for DMT, the Spirit Molecule, where like the soul, like he did like the soul going out of the guy's head with like a bonsai tree that's like 300 years old or something like that, 1,000 years old.
I think I know the one that you're talking
like
about.
The Hall of Eyes, yeah. It's the title of the book.
I'm looking at that one right now, actually, on the cover of the DMT, the Spirit Molecule. It is a very beautiful illustration, and here it is for all you guys who aren't aware of it. Here is DMT, the Spirit Molecule. So the thing, I do see the similarity. I mean, those eyes, like what exactly is an eye even? It's also an explosion in a way. It's like the sun, the eye, the all this energy emanating forth. When we're looking at fire, when we're looking at the sun, it is in a way like we're trying to reconnect to this primordial thing out of which all of us came from and which we all are. Because like I said before, even like the face, this is like the point out of which triangle comes down, triangle comes up over here. We are in a way built based on this. And here too, like the heart, you know, the nipples, they're like the eyes. The heart is like the third eye. Yeah. And the diaphragm is like the mouth. Or no, sorry, the nose, because of the breathing. And the mouth is like the belly button. So, you know, we eat and then we fill up into the stomach. And I'm not sure what the penis is in this case. Because, like, we have a chin, but I don't know. This is
I think that the sexual organs are some sort of otherworldly elements to our esoteric anatomy, if you will, because they're the elements that can create new life on top of that.
This is why the modern world is so obsessed with sexuality, because it's a version of the sacred aspect of being and intimacy in eros, and so now you have to like bring it down to the level of materiality to like just blunt utilitarian pleasure seeking, and that's pretty much.
But the balls are also like
sexuality
eyes
with no generation.
Transient
the balls are like the eyes, and the
nose.
And the nose is like the phallus. I mean, look at those Japanese masks. Like we even have an emoji like that, like the Japanese mask with that long nose. In fact, I made an animation.
Like the percussionist for Slipknot.
Well, there was this. So for those who have not seen it yet, and I saw Cowboy posting it recently, there was an animation I made back in School of Visual Arts. So I went to SVA, and this is what I made back in 2011. So long time ago, and there was my thesis film called Fantastic Plastic. Let me see if I could find it. And it was about this singer named Bobby Schnoz who had this really, really long nose, and he sang with it. But then one day, a hungry chihuahua bit his nose off. Yeah. So I am posting it right here in the chat for everybody to take a look at. Hold on a second. Let me find where exactly we are now, and we're probably going to be ending. Yeah, the whole the peeing thing.
Yeah, I gotta go eat actually. So
yeah, the peeing thing that Exoteric Eric posted. I don't know. It's probably okay. There's no penis in there, but it's close enough that I'm not going to take a chance on it. Thank you, Ding Dong. That is exactly the symbol I was talking about, and here is Fantastic Plastic. So check out Fantastic Plastic, guys. This is an animation that I did, and I'm really proud of it. And yes, now we are going to go. Modern Hermeticist says, yeah, I got to go eat and satisfy my material desires. Yeah, same here. I got to finish
Big
the kefir
same.
and the salad.
Well, it's been, how long has it been? Since 4, right? So, oh, fuck,
Yeah,
over
almost
4
4.
hours.
Yeah, and we've got
Yeah.
still 30 people watching. Holy shit, congratulations. Guys, thank you so much for watching. As always, this is a very satisfying conversation. I really enjoyed having everybody here. Shout outs to Hotep Sophia, Zac
And this-
Waldman,
Cheers. It was interesting.
Gruel
And this
Society.
Sunday, hopefully, we will do our first of hopefully weekly painting streams. So I'm going to be painting a landscape that was actually photographed by Shantyman.
Nice.
So
Shantyman.
hopefully we'll call it the art corner or something like that.
Is this
We'll have
like
a different-
rapid painting, Geo?
Yeah. I figure like I'll do one every Sunday. We'll have maybe around 6 or 7 or so. We'll see.
Are you like the new? You're like Bob Ross, but the more wholesome version.
Yeah,
If you can
the
imagine
more
More Orthodox Catholic, yeah.
the based in Redfield version of Bob.
Yeah, the basin.
Yeah, so hopefully that will be good, and eventually in the future we will invite other artists, some of my friends who are painting, but probably other digital artists that Lev knows. Like I'm thinking we're probably going to get what's his name? The animator Lev. I can't believe I forget his name. We're mutuals on Twitter. He did the Joe Rogan animation. Geller?
Raphael.
No, not
Raphael. Yeah, we'll get the spirit of Raphael.
Oh man, Raphael, that would be quite something. But hold on one second. I do want to get a lot of animators and Newgrounds people who I have met through Pico Day. Pico, I don't know if it's Pico or Pico Day, but for those who don't know, they used to have Newgrounds used to have this office party. The name is Chris Gassler, aka Spinal Palm, on Twitter.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
let me
Chris-
post Spinal Palm's stuff in the BTR chat as well for all you guys to check out. He is an amazing artist. He drew his own take on Chris Chan's incredible artwork of when Sonichu was having sex with Rosichu. Chris Chan, the genius that he is, he drew the sex scene, like the blowjob, from the perspective of the penis head, where you saw like this slit, and then you saw Rosichu's mouth, and then it just got closer and
I
closer
forget about that,
and
yeah.
closer. And it's like, God, that is so fucking genius. And what I would love to do, and I said this before, but I'm gonna say it again. What I would love to do, guys, I would love to make a deal with with the Chinese government, so that they would give us one town, just one town. They'll sell us a town. This
One
town.
of those fake towns they got.
Exactly. Yeah, like they even have a fake town with little people in it. Like the little people dressed up in costumes, like, yeah, we're like little gremlins or whatever. Anyway, we'll buy a town. We'll give that town to Chris Chan, and that'll become his CWCville. And he will
In real
have
life.
he will have like a whole religion based on Christery, and they will put on a play. They will put on a play where they will construct a giant penis, and they will make the penis hole act just like in that comic, where it would slowly it would go into the mouth of Rosashu. They would just construct
they have a Korean, I think it's in Korea, the Sex Festu, where they got like you get to like walk into the hole.
Oh,
you get like the sound inside of sound.
Wow, that sounds. I don't know how that sounds.
It's like a phallic worship, like where you put these like wooden carved penises, and like as soon as you get married, you like if you want to have kids, you like put the wooden penis in these series of caves, I believe, and that's like a fertility, like a phallic worship thing for good fertility and health.
Nice.
So
well,
maybe Chris Chan will
cheers to that.
continue the tradition.
That's
so.
exceedingly based.
Yeah. Well, Chris Chan is going to introduce recycling into the religion as well. For those.
Well, there's actually a mythological basis for recycling. I mean, Odin, for instance. Well, never mind. Don't worry about it. Do that research.
I would love to have a Chris Chan or now Christine Chan on the show one of these days, but difficult to get a hold of. Anyway, shout outs. Gio, you want to start us out with the shout outs today?
Sure. Let's go. Let me just queue up
And don't
going
forget,
back to the
guys,
stream.
we are also streaming on DLive, and we have been streaming on DLive this whole time and on Facebook. Next time, I want to try DLive, Facebook, and Telegram. What am I talking about? Not Telegram, Periscope. So let's see what happens then.
I love how the DLive comments are like several levels more like racist than like.
Well, okay.
So
yes, at least they only have the ability to post comments and not pictures. Thank God they did not discover the Discord yet. I'm gonna have to lock the Discord down and just grandfather all the fucking people that are in it so that they behave. And that's it.
Well, I like how we have a mix of different people. So let's.
I just don't like to edit.
So I'm gonna start from the top here.
Yes.
We got Randy Lenz. I feel like Ghost from True Capitalist Radio doing this. I hope someone like changes their name to troll us. Like I am Commune Hist. I am Goon Cave Expert. Something like that. Randy Lenz. We got the Jugs. We got Jugs, regular friend of the show. Super Iron Bob as always. We got Ecclesiastic Grav. We got Vale. We got Christopher. We got of course, Modern Hermeticist. We got Jake. Did I say Jacob Lindsay? We got Mikhail Anton. We got Bruce Bogtrotter. We got Eternal Saturnalia. Shout out to Eternal Saturnalia. We got, of course, Buff. We got Hermes.
Asir Veneer.
Wongkar Superfan XO. You got Arc Thumos. We got Asir Veneer. We got
Byzantium Archon.
Yeah, we got Emotu, of course. Who else we got, Engineer?
Oh,
we got
Crockett just followed on DLive. Crockett, thank you so much. I don't know who you are, and tell us how you discovered. Like, did you discover us through YouTube and then went to DLive? Either way, thank you guys so much for going to DLive as well. I'm gonna post the DLive link right now. Subscribe to DLive. We got to make sure we got a backup for all this.
We have to conquer all of the other streams on DLive with our good content. We are going to Well, we don't even have to conquer the kill stream because Ethan Ralph got himself in. So now we're going to conquer Nick Fuentes. We're going to go over America first.
Yes.
Okay. So, we got Nicola Maxwell, Kyle Napoleon, of course, our good friend. Who else we got? Who else we got? Engineer.
We got Mick Coppin.
We got Gear. G-I-R, is that how you say Gur?
Oh, Crockett says through Twitter. So Crockett discovered DLive through Twitter, I guess. Yeah, I did post the DLive link in that tweet. Yeah, so thank you so much, Crockett. Let's see. Unauthorized account.
Ding Dong.
Ding Dong.
We got Ding Dong. We got Byzantium Archon. And I think that's, I'm not seeing anyone else.
The only other person I see is unauthorized account. So
yeah,
who says 2 hours after midnight here?
We got McCoppin. That was that was a pretty good comment.
And
McCoppin.
we got Restream Bot. So Restream Bot.
Yeah, Restream Bot.
Yeah, it takes all the chats.
Delirium
into
Trigger
one.
number 2. Delirium Trigger number 2. We also got.
Can't forget about them.
So there you go.
Yes,
that's it.
That is it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it as always.
We should do Twitter shoutouts as well. Whoever likes the.
Yes, that is a good idea. In fact, I mean, hell, I'm gonna open up Twitter right now, and we can do that as well. Don't forget also to go to patreon.com/breaktherules of the $20 patrons get an exquisite print from Geo. And now I'm gonna move on to the shoutouts for Twitter. So go.
We got Twitter shoutouts, Engineer.
Yes. Here we go. Okay.
If you know the lore behind True Capitalist Radio, you know that reference. So
here we go. Here are the likes. Okay, so we got Punished Holly. We got Gangwin, aka Shot in the Head. we got Yimmy Sober. Haka says, by the way, great shout out to Haka says, who is right here with us. Haka says, thank you so much for being a part of the show. First timer, and I would really love for you to come back and talk about Electric Universe next time around.
I could do a whole lecture on a couple different topics.
Hell yeah.
Thanks for the opportunity.
We always need different topics. I mean, you tell us what you want us to do because we are always interested. Like, I don't want to have to think about
I'll give you a pitch. We'll talk about it.
Excellent. So then we have Dr. Kalash. We have swanbitcoin.com/bread. Brad, aka Citizen, because his name isn't showing up here fully. Citizen Bitcoin. I thought it was going to be Citizen something else.
A lot of crypto people, my God.
Yeah, well, actually, dude, speaking of crypto people, I did not mention it as much as I should mention it. We have Cointree now, so if you go to the description here, I'm going to paste it. If you go into Cointree/break the rules, I'm putting it in the chat right here. There is no excuse.
If you donate at least $112 in crypto, you will get the painting that I did on last week's Free for All Friday.
Yes.
So there you go. So maybe I posted on Instagram, so maybe post on my Instagram and post it.
Yes. So here we go. I am posting the painting from your Instagram, and while I am doing that, I want to remind everybody about this crypto donation process. It's really simple. I did a test today, so you can do either Bitcoin or you can do Ethereum. Either way you do it, it's going to work, and you could do it right now, you could do it later. If you do it right now, it is going to be displayed on the screen instead of the $5 in Ethereum section over here, so that should work. We are still perfecting it, and it's going to be really, really good. So much love to all the crypto people out there, and here is Gio's beautiful painting that I'm posting right here from Instagram. Here it is, everybody. Check this out.
That could be yours for $115 in crypto.
Yes.
So there you go.
So guys,
when do we get the full frontal?
Oh, I'm working on it. Don't worry.
Guys, thank you so much once again. This has been great. This has been amazing as always. There are so many clips that I got to clip from all these. So wish me luck there.
And tune in this Sunday for the first Art Corner painting stream on BTR.
Art Corner painting stream. I cannot wait. We're going to have an auction. We are going to have the time of our lives, and we owe it all to you, and I owe it all to the great people here. Gio Panacchietti, the modern hermeticist. Haka says, sorry, I'm still not used to saying, because I want to say Hakaya. I want to say Hakaya instead of Haka, but yes, Hakaya says, and I'm also, yes, okay. And Hermes
all the
Thurston.
links to the people that have other shows will be in the description, to Modern Hermeticist channel, to Helio Sunblind show.
Sunblind, amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So there we go. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Take care.